Welcome to the cultivation universe where everything abnormal is normal. And today's main character, Bai Xiaochun, is living proof. A young man who fears death more than the sky falling. A genius whose main talent is causing trouble. And also the only person who can make the entire sect want to beat him, protect him, and avoid him as much as possible. A will eternal, a cultivation story full of laughter. But beneath it is the emotional journey of a seemingly useless person who carries within him a will that can shake heaven and earth. If you want a story that's addictive from the first listen, humorous, touching, and extremely captivating, then this is the perfect choice. Now let's embark on a journey where just one thought is enough to shake eternity. After leaving the bloodstream sect, Bai Xiaochun transformed into a rainbow in midair and swiftly flew away. The vast, boundless blue sky, with its ethereal clouds, gave him the feeling of floating between heaven and earth, as if he could roam freely in all directions. This experience made Bai Xiaochun understand what it meant to have the vastness of the sky and the sea. Within the bloodstream sect's sphere of influence, even the surrounding forests were almost entirely blood red, with many places emitting waves of extremely ferocious aura. However, these ferocious auras, upon encountering the blood energy emanating from Bai Xiaochun's body, recoiled in fear, not daring to reveal themselves again. The entire area within the bloodstream sect's sphere of influence was closely connected to the blood ancestor, and Bai Xiaochun's appearance generated a kind of noble bloodline resonance that suppressed the people living in this land. Entering the cultivation area of the bloodstream sect's clans, Bai Xiaochun didn't care at all. His blood son status in the bloodstream sect was extremely noble and special. Even traveling alone, he encountered no obstacles or resistance. Along the way, he encountered some powerful beasts, but after sensing Bai Xiaochun's blood aura, they immediately avoided him, not daring to provoke him. Therefore, throughout the journey, Bai Xiaochun flew and admired the scenery, feeling happy and relaxed. Occasionally, he even cultivated the immortal longevity technique. Clearly, after leaving the bloodstream sect, his cultivation progress had slowed down considerably. Although he didn't want it to, he had no other choice. Fortunately, Bai Xiaochun possessed the blood ancestor's inheritance, and he had a thorough understanding of the immortal longevity technique. Although his cultivation speed slowed down, as long as his cultivation methods were flawless, he could still improve. Regarding the heaven-penetrating Cha technique, Bai Xiaochun wouldn't cultivate it within the bloodstream sect's sphere of influence. He had thought it through carefully. Given the criteria of this technique, it would be better to practice it while flying over the Luochen mountain range. However, Bai Xiaochun was itching to practice it. He had practiced the human control grade technique several times while flying. Although his divine abilities hadn't progressed very well, as his cultivation level increased and his spiritual power reached the mid-stage of foundation establishment, the human control grade technique's power output had become more subtle than before. As for the primordial magnetic force, Bai Xiaochun had diligently studied it for many years and wouldn't give up. While flying, he continued to cultivate and learn more about the technique. Along the way, whenever he felt tired, Bai Xiaochun would find a cultivation family to rest in. When he left, the family members would offer generous gifts and respectfully see him off. Along this path, he felt deeply moved. Given his status as a blood son, he was even more unwilling to give it up. Abandoning it would be like giving up wealth and power. I, Bai Xiaochun, truly lived too honestly, too principledly. For the sake of the Lingxi sect, I have to sacrifice so much. The more Bai Xiaochun thought about it, the more he felt great. And Song Zhengwan. Thinking of Song Zhengwan, Bai Xiaochun couldn't help but feel a warmth in his heart, remembering her peerless beauty and sighing. Water, good and evil cannot coexist. Bai Xiaochun outwardly appeared strong and strict with himself, but inwardly he felt a sense of loss. Looking towards the Bloodzi sect, his heart grew even more desolate. The further he moved away from the Bloodzi sect's vicinity, the more Bai Xiaochun wanted to return. Finally, he gritted his teeth, resolutely refusing to look any further, and accelerated his flight. Finally, he saw a long, continuous mountain range in the distance, stretching endlessly into the distance like a sleeping giant dragon. The distance didn't seem far, but in reality, if he wanted to fly there, Bai Xiaochun estimated it would take at least half a day at his highest speed. Flying over this mountain range means entering the territory of the Lingxi sect. Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath, his eyes filled with determination, and was about to accelerate further. But at that moment, 3 streaks of rainbow light flashed past from afar. Among the 3 streaks of rainbow light was an old man with foundation establishment cultivation, and 2 others with 7th and 8th level Cha condensation cultivation, struggling to keep up with the movement using their magical artifacts. Seeing this, the old man frowned and scolded the 2 young men. War is coming. You are the future of my Shiyu family. At this speed, how can you survive the war? Controlling a flying magic artifact, although requiring cultivation to sustain it, also requires skill to maintain flight. Following the old man's shout, the 2 teenagers gritted their teeth, exerting all their strength to control the magic artifacts beneath their feet, but they still staggered unsteadily. One was even worse, falling from the artifact. Useless. How much resources has the family invested in you, only to raise a bunch of beasts? The old man flicked his sleeve, preventing the teenager from falling to the ground, his face grim as he reprimanded them. Suddenly, the old man noticed someone on the horizon not far away. Bai Xiaochun was flying towards them. Humph, he was blind. Don't you know this is the territory of my Shiyu clan? Flying is strictly forbidden. Get down here immediately. The old man, annoyed, flicked his sleeve, staring directly at Bai Xiaochun, his voice booming. Bai Xiaochun was flying closer. He had seen the 3 men, but didn't bother paying attention to them. He intended to speed past them, but before he could, the old man, seemingly stung by something, dared to yell at him. What did you say? Bai Xiaochun glared at the 3 old men. The old man's eyes widened, staring intently at Bai Xiaochun, his expression changing drastically, his body trembling. You are Zhongfeng blood son, Wen Mo Yizang. The old man's face turned pale, remembering his earlier loud reprimands, and immediately felt terrified, secretly regretting his actions. He clasped his hands together and bowed deeply to Bai Xiaochun. The Shiyu clan, we pay our respects to blood son. Bai Xiaochun snorted coldly, his gaze sweeping over the 3 of them. How did you know my way? Bai Xiaochun asked coldly. Seeing Bai Xiaochun's sharp gaze, the 2 Cha condensation cultivators flinched, lowering their heads in fear. Even the foundation establishment old man standing in front felt his scalp tingle, his breathing becoming rapid. And the information he had gathered about the ruthless Zhongfeng blood son before him flashed through his mind. We didn't know the way of Lord Blood Sun. The Water Moon clan has always been around here, keeping an eye on all passing cultivators. Just now we spotted Lord Blood Sun, so we hurried here to pay our respects and invite Lord Blood Sun into our clan to rest. Bai Xiaochun nodded arrogantly. He felt that with his status as Blood Sun, he had to be arrogant in everything he did. So he flicked his sleeve and slowly spoke. Very well, lead me, Blood Sun, to your clan. The old man inwardly groaned, not daring to delay, forcing a smile on his face, and hurriedly led Bai Xiaochun into the Water Moon clan. The Water Moon clan in the Bloodstream sect wasn't considered a top-tier cultivation clan, but it was much stronger than smaller clans, ranking among the middle ranking. It occupied 3 mountains, its verdant fruit trees contrasting sharply with the surrounding red soil, easily drawing attention. As Bai Xiaochun flew closer, he immediately noticed the strangeness of the fruit here and let out a soft exclamation. The fruits of the mountain trees were jet black in color and emitted a peculiar fragrance. This scent enveloped the entire Shiyu clan, and after inhaling it, a hazy feeling arose. Lord Bloodsun, these fruits here weren't cultivated by the Water Moon clan. They've been growing wild here for a very long time. The Bloodstream sect once sent people to take some for research and discovered that these fruits are poisonous, inedible, and unsuitable for medicine. Their main purpose is to create a fragrance that repels some ferocious beasts. The scent, once inhaled, produces a kind of hazy illusion. The Foundation establishment cultivator standing nearby spoke up to remind him. He couldn't be blamed. Anyone visiting the Water Moon clan for the first time would be attracted by these fruits. Over the years, they've been taken away for research countless times, and it was finally determined that they were useless to cultivators. Bai Xiaochun arrived in a flash. As soon as he set foot on the mountain, the entire Shiyu clan was in a commotion, rushing out to pay their respects. Ignoring the onlookers, Bai Xiaochun walked to a fruit tree, plucked a fruit, and carefully examined it, confirming the Shiyu clan's words. The myriad plants, the myriad wonders, the scent of this fruit can even create illusions. Bai Xiaochun looked around curiously. The surrounding trees indeed appeared to be very old. On the third mountain peak, Bai Xiaochun found a tree whose age he didn't even know. The ancient trunk was enormous, requiring more than 10 people to encircle it, but half of it had withered, and the other half had begun to dry up, showing little vitality. Here, the fruit emitted a particularly strong and pungent aroma. Bai Xiaochun, sensing something amiss, quickly circulated his cultivation technique, and the unpleasant feeling instantly vanished. Unfortunately, even after circulating my cultivation technique, I didn't fully regain my senses. It only delayed the onset of the symptoms. The fruit here is vastly different. Bai Xiaochun shook his head, intending to leave, but suddenly his expression changed. He looked down at the storage bag hanging from his waist. He had just discovered something in the storage bag emitting an unusual aura. His spiritual sense swept over it, and with a strange expression, he ordered the Water Moon clan members to stay away from the area. Bai Xiaochun then took out a palm-sized turtle shell from the storage bag. This turtle shell was an eternal and indestructible artifact he had obtained from Song Zhengwan's cave. The shell itself was intact, but the inside was withered and dead. However, for some reason, amidst the fragrance under the ancient tree, the turtle shell felt strangely different. From within the turtle shell, a small green tail emerged. Bai Xiaochun's eyes widened as he saw four dark green legs slowly protrude from the four corners of the shell, followed by the head still alive. Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath, looking closely. Although the turtle shell had revealed its head, tail, and four legs, it lay limp and motionless, like a puppet. Bai Xiaochun stared for a long time, feeling strange, but couldn't find any other clues. He casually picked up the turtle shell and shook it. The head, tail, and four legs of the turtle bumped against the shell, making a thudding sound. Not staying long at the Shuyu clan. At sunset that same day, the Shuyu clan presented generous gifts and respectfully saw Bai Xiaochun off. After flying for several hours, he approached the Luochen mountain range. He flew even faster, carefully extending his spiritual sense to investigate. Bai Xiaochun discovered that the Luochen mountain range was slightly different from before. It seemed a terrifying aura was hidden within the mountain range. Although it hadn't erupted, it was enough to terrify Bai Xiaochun. What's happening? Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath, becoming even more cautious. Late at night, he finally saw a sight that shocked him. Nearby, a transparent light screen, invisible from afar, stretched across the Luochen mountain range, forming an enormous wall of light. The Luochen mountain range was as vast as this wall of light, dividing the border between the Lingxi sect and the Zwexi sect. Bai Xiaochun didn't need to test it himself to know how powerful this barrier was. If he tried to force his way through, he would surely be annihilated, his soul and spirit scattered. Bai Xiaochun's expression changed as he carefully examined it, sensing the vibrations of the Lingxi sect's cultivation techniques behind the barrier. Luochen mountain range, the Lingxi sect's strongest defense line against the Zwexi sect. Bai Xiaochun's mind trembled. He recalled the rumors about the Luochen mountain range he'd heard while still in the Lingxi sect. It was rumored that this mountain range was originally a defensive line built by the Lingxi sect over 10,000 years. While I was in the Zwexi sect, I didn't sense much change in the outside world. Unexpectedly, the war between the Zwexi sect and the Lingxi sect has become a fire burning at their eyebrows. The appearance of this barrier proves this. Bai Xiaochun remained silent for a moment, then gently turned his head to look in the direction of the Bloodstream sect. After half a day, confirming that no one was around, he took a deep breath, raised his right hand, and removed his mask, revealing his true face. Putting away the mask, Bai Xiaochun flicked his sleeve, and the blood energy of the Bloodstream sect was absorbed by the immortal longevity technique, causing it to retract and no longer be visible. At the same time, the purple jet through heaven technique erupted from his spiritual sea, and then Bai Xiaochun stepped towards the light screen. The moment he touched the light screen, a terrifyingly cold will swept over Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun didn't move, his heart pounding. Fortunately, after only a few breaths, the cold will silently dissipated, and Bai Xiaochun regained his composure, stepping out of the light screen. That must not be the ancestor's divine consciousness, but the formation spirit of the formation. Bai Xiaochun fearfully turned his head to look at the light screen behind him, took a deep breath, and looked around. The place was no longer red, but an endless azure blue. Bai Xiaochun, I've returned. Bai Xiaochun whispered, his body flashing, transforming into a rainbow and soaring away. The purple jet through heaven technique within him was fully activated, a powerful purple light bursting from him, dyeing the surroundings purple. His third eye opened in his forehead, filling the heavens and earth with color. He no longer needed to conceal himself. With a flick of his hand, the purple jet transformed into a cauldron, shaking the heavens and earth. Bai Xiaochun waved his sleeve, mist dispersing everywhere, and the water marsh kingdom descended. Bai Xiaochun looked up at the sky and laughed loudly, the feeling of unrestrained joy filling both his body and spirit. Uncle Li Zhang Daopan, Ho Xiaomei, Ho Yunfei, Su Beokai, Sect Master, Tai Din, I've returned. Bai Xiaochun was incredibly excited, his speed increasing, breaking through the sky and flying far away. On the way, during a rest, he took out the turtle pattern cauldron, gazing at it with emotion for a long time. I didn't dare use it in the bloodstream sect, but now I can finally refine it 4 times. Bai Xiaochun was excited. He had already gathered many materials for the 4th refinement, and without hesitation, he immediately began refining. All his magic treasures were quickly refined 4 times, especially his signature magic treasure, the little wooden sword. After the 4th refinement, it no longer resembled wood, but had a golden color. The golden crow sword was also like that, radiating dazzling light and emitting a fierce aura that even frightened Bai Xiaochun. He also took out the lamp given to him by the Song family's ancestor and refined it. After refining, its silver light shimmered. Holding it in his hand, he felt the aura within the lamp, which made his scalp tingle. Now I am so powerful, to the point that even I am afraid of myself. Bai Xiaochun frowned, carefully put away the lantern, and happily flew back to Lingxi sect. Along the way, he remembered the little turtle, so he took it out, habitually shaking it a few times, watching its head, tail, and limbs bump against its shell, making a loud thudding sound. He then grabbed the little turtle's tail and pulled hard, discovering that it could stretch incredibly long. As soon as he let go, it would spring back with a thud. It can do that! Bai Xiaochun exclaimed in surprise, grabbing its 4 legs and pulling with all his might, finally grabbing its head and pulling hard. Aha! It could also stretch quite a long distance. Bai Xiaochun then slammed the little turtle against a rocky mountain like a weapon, causing a loud bang. The hard mountain shattered, but the little turtle remained unharmed. Bai Xiaochun felt that this little turtle was not simple, so along the way he often took it out, shaking it, pulling it, throwing it, and whipping it, finding it very amusing. A few days later, while he was shaking the little turtle, he vaguely smelled a fragrant scent. Although the fragrance was faint, after Bai Xiaochun inhaled it, his cultivation instantly became vibrant. As soon as he circulated his energy, countless spiritual energies from all around were immediately drawn into his body, causing a shocking tremor in his spiritual sea. Huh? Bai Xiaochun was stunned. He wanted to try again, but his cultivation had already returned to normal. He observed carefully and found that just 1 circulation had been equivalent to a month of normal cultivation. Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath, staring intently at the little turtle. Could it really be an eternal and indestructible object? Bai Xiaochun's heart pounded. Remembering all the strange occurrences of the little turtle, he shook it vigorously. But no matter how much he shook it, the fragrance didn't reappear. Unwilling to give up, Bai Xiaochun continued shaking it. Finally, on the 3rd day, the fragrance emanated from the little turtle's body again. Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath. His cultivation surged, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth seemed to be sucked in, rushing forward wildly, forming a huge vortex. Some nearby cultivation families witnessed this and couldn't help but gape in astonishment. Bai Xiaochun was overjoyed, looking up at the sky and laughing loudly. Ha ha ha, Bai Xiaochun, am truly intelligent. My efforts weren't wasted. This little turtle is a treasure. It can clearly help me cultivate faster. Bai Xiaochun was excited. He had made up his mind to shake the little turtle every day. Several more days passed, and finally, the day arrived when Bai Xiaochun looked into the distance and saw the mountain gate of the Lingxi sect, the 3 mountains on the south bank, the 4 mountains on the north bank, and the Xidao mountain spanning the middle of the Tongshan River, each peak radiating light. A powerful pressure and vibration emanated from the Lingxi sect. Bai Xiaochun, excited, grabbed the little turtle and shook it vigorously. Finally, I've returned. I remember back then when I left, so many people were reluctant to see me go. Those people must have missed me terribly during my absence. I wonder how Uncle Li's seclusion went. Bai Xiaochun's heart was filled with excitement, missing Li Qingou very much. He shook the little turtle vigorously, increasing his speed, transforming into a rainbow and flying straight towards the mountain gate of the Lingxi sect. Just as he approached, 4 rainbows immediately flew out from within the mountain gate, accompanied by a low shout. "Stop right there!" Among the 4 cultivators who flew out, 1 was at the great perfection of the Cha condensation stage, and the other 3 were at the 5th or 6th level of the Cha condensation stage. Their hands ready to unleash their techniques, their eyes shining brightly as they stared at Bai Xiaochun. The 4 were stunned, especially the leader of the group, his eyes wide, his whole body trembling. It was Chen Fei. "Bai Zi, Uncle Bai." Chen Fei gasped in surprise, but luckily he reacted quickly, hastily changing his form of address and bowing respectfully. The other 3 were also stunned and bowed in greeting to Bai Xiaochun. "Not bad, not bad. Everyone, keep cultivating diligently." Bai Xiaochun was extremely pleased, feeling that this was truly his home. He immediately adopted the demeanor of a senior, nodding slightly in approval, and led the 4 others into the mountain gate. The formation of the Lingxi sect didn't hinder Bai Xiaochun at all, so in just a moment, Bai Xiaochun flew into the Lingxi sect. Looking at the familiar south bank, the bustling crowds, the figures flying back and forth, and also seeing Qingfeng Mountain, Ziding Mountain, and Xiangyun Mountain. Looking down at the outer disciples area below the mountains, and the phoenixes flying in the sky, Bai Xiaochun felt incredibly familiar. He felt he needed to let everyone know that Bai Xiaochun, whom they were reluctant to leave, had returned. "Fellow disciples, Bai Xiaochun, I've returned." Bai Xiaochun stood in midair, tilting his head back and shouting loudly, his voice like thunder, echoing throughout the south shore. Hearing Bai Xiaochun's voice, Chen Fei looked down at the south shore with sympathy. "Brothers and sisters of the Lingxi sect, I, Bai Xiaochun, have returned." Bai Xiaochun's voice boomed, echoing across the southern shore, even faintly audible on the northern shore. The Lingxi sect, which had been bustling with activity, suddenly fell into an eerie silence. The phoenixes in the air trembled, forgetting to fly. On Xiangyun Mountain, Elder Zhou, who had taken over as the sect leader since Li Qinghu's seclusion, was seated when he suddenly heard that thunderous voice, and was completely stunned. Zhou Xinqi, who had just finished cultivating on the Xidao Mountain and was about to leave, was completely taken aback by the voice. Su Beokai, who was boasting to some friends on Qingfeng Mountain about his omniscience, was suddenly interrupted by the voice, his eyes wide with astonishment. Zhang Daben, frowning and standing still listening to Su Mixing's admonition, suddenly looked up upon hearing that remark. On the southern shore, all the cultivators who had been unintentionally implicated by Bai Xiaochun heard that remark and were all stunned. On Xiangyun Mountain, an elder was lecturing on cultivation, and the disciples around him were listening attentively. Suddenly, Bai Xiaochun's booming voice interrupted them, causing the elder's face to change drastically, and several of the disciples were also startled. On Changdao Mountain, Zheng Yuandong, holding a jade slip, had a gloomy expression. The information in the jade slip was giving him a headache. He was about to announce a mission to go out when he heard that remark, stopping in his tracks and his expression changing. Also on Changdao Mountain, to Supreme Elders, the same to whose clothes had been torn by Bai Xiaochun's power-gathering pearl, also changed color. Bai Xiaochun was deeply moved to see that after his roar, the entire southern shore fell silent, birds in the air stopped flying, and cultivators in flight halted. "Everyone still remembers me. They must miss me terribly. Life without me would probably be boring. Even cultivation would be dull." Chen Fei. "Isn't that right?" Bai Xiaochun turned and asked Chen Fei with a sigh. Chen Fei didn't know what to say, so he tried to flatter him. "Uncle Bai's divine power is unparalleled. His reputation is illustrious." After returning, he only shouted once, and the entire Lingxi sect, inside and out, was invigorated. As soon as Chen Fei spoke, the other 3 widened their eyes. They were already stunned by Bai Xiaochun's roar, and the overwhelming reaction from all around made them even more bewildered. Now, hearing their notoriously cold and ruthless senior brother Chen Fei say such words, they couldn't help but gasp. The 3, who had never experienced the time when Bai Xiaochun was around, had only heard about him and never experienced his life firsthand, so they looked at each other in bewilderment. "Haha, of course, everyone missed me so much. Look, I just shouted once, and everyone was so excited they were speechless." Don't worry, I'm back. I'll never leave again. Bai Xiaochun was moved and was about to shout a few more words when a deafening roar erupted, and then all three mountains on the southern bank shook violently. The heavens are blind. Bai Xiaochun is back. Damn it, wasn't he supposed to be out training and honing his skills? How did he come back so quickly after only a few years? It's over. The spirit-tailed chickens just started to grow a little. The alchemist madman is back. A cacophony of ear-piercing screams erupted. The phoenixes in the sky shrieked mournfully, hastily flying away. Most of the cultivators suspended in midair were Foundation establishment cultivators, their hair standing on end as they recalled the terrifying scene of Bai Xiaochun tearing off their clothes in the square that day. They all shuddered and fled. The ordinary disciples on the three mountains recalled the tragic events of the past, filled with indignation. Chu Xinqi gritted his teeth, snorted coldly, and resolutely continued his seclusion. Subeokai hadn't intended to show his face, but remembering Bai Xiaochun's status, he couldn't help but fly out to greet him. Bai Xiaochun glared, hearing the screams from all sides, quickly coughed, touched his nose, and looked at the four people including Chen Fei. Haha, look, everyone is so enthusiastic. Chen Fei, sweating profusely, racked his brains but couldn't think of what to say next. The other three looked at Bai Xiaochun with disbelief. They couldn't believe that someone could cause the entire southern shore to almost collapse with just a single sentence. Bai Xiaochun felt a little embarrassed and resentful, thinking to himself that in the Bloodstream sect, having risen to the rank of Blood Sun, he was treated with respect wherever he went. And no one dared to utter a word of defiance. He could simply glare at someone and they would tremble with fear. While he was still comparing himself to Bai Xiaochun, on Purple Peak Mountain, Zhang Dapan let out a long, sky-high roar and transformed into a rainbow, flying out. Hou Xiaomei, who was cultivating, happily skipped out like a sparrow. He Sen Pan, Hou Yunfei, and those with close friendships to Bai Xiaochun all happily flew out. Zhang Yuandong cleared his throat, feeling it was inappropriate to show his face, so he watched Bai Xiaochun from afar, remembering the mischievous things the other party had done in the past, and chuckled softly. A joyful roar echoed from the northern bank. Iron Egg, now 10 zhang long like a small mountain, surged forward from the northern bank, its roar causing all the beasts on the northern bank to howl in response. The roar astonished the entire northern shore, leaving them dumbfounded. The disciples of the northern shore, unaware of what was happening, also flew out. Reaching the southern shore's boundary, they saw Bai Xiaochun in the distance, and were all stunned, their faces changing drastically. They took deep breaths, gasping in shock. Bai Xiaochun, he's back! Then they hurriedly ran to inform their friends on the northern shore, and the northern shore quickly fell into turmoil. Bai Xiaochun laughed loudly, striding quickly towards them. Tai Dan rushed to Bai Xiaochun's side, stopping abruptly, its large eyes wide with joy. Its body slowly shrunk back to its original size, clinging to Bai Xiaochun's trousers, refusing to let go, as if afraid Bai Xiaochun would throw it aside and go off to play alone. Bai Xiaochun was overjoyed, hugging Tai Dan, then putting his arm around Zhang Dapeng, who had just arrived. Zhang Dapeng was excited and had many things he wanted to say, but seeing Hou Xiaomei had arrived, he just winked at Bai Xiaochun and retreated. Bai Xiaochun laughed heartily, looking at Hou Xiaomei. He was no longer as naive as before after his time at the Bloodstream sect. Bai Xiaochun had matured considerably. He proactively stepped forward and put his arm around Hou Xiaomei's neck. Hou Xiaomei blushed and kept pouting. Hou Yunfei, Subeokai, and the disciples who owed Bai Xiaochun favors from the fallen sword abyss all arrived, all excited. Hundreds of people surrounded Bai Xiaochun, asking questions and chatting noisily, telling him about the events that had happened in the sect over the past years. And as they talked, they flew back to the Seed Da Mountain. Bai Xiaochun also took the opportunity to ask everyone about Li Qingao, but no one knew much, only saying they hadn't heard any bad rumors, which reassured Bai Xiaochun. Over 100 people crowded together, astonishing the disciples who had only heard rumors and hadn't experienced Bai Xiaochun's life firsthand. They couldn't imagine that within the sect, there could be such a person, someone who caused countless people helplessness, yet at the same time made countless others eager to befriend him. I've heard many rumors about Senior Uncle Bai. Senior Uncle Bai, what kind of person is he? I feel that ever since Senior Uncle Bai entered the sect, something has changed in Lingxi sect. Normally, it's chaotic, but always burdened by the pressure of impending war. But now, it seems that pressure is gone. The three people accompanying Chen Fei whispered to each other. Chen Fei watched the group walk away, gazing at Bai Xiaochun's retreating figure, his eyes filled with complex emotions. Hearing the three others whispering, he remained silent for a moment before speaking. Because he, Bai Xiaochun, is on the list of prospective successors of our Lingxi sect. His Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment is unparalleled. His aura alone surpasses everyone else, making everyone both love and hate him, yet all must wholeheartedly accept him. The other three remained silent, their eyes showing understanding, their gazes following Bai Xiaochun filled with even more respect. The entire Lingxi sect, abuzz with the news of Bai Xiaochun's return, also saw one person emerge from a cave dwelling on the northern bank of Yanwei Peak, gazing towards the distant southern bank. It was a girl, a gentle breeze blowing her hair, revealing a stunningly beautiful face, her eyes glistening like water, her body curvaceous and alluring, possessing boundless charm. Even in conservative clothing, she exuded a captivating allure, her whole being radiating a fiery passion that drew people closer, even knowing they might be burned. "Brother, you finally returned." The girl covered her mouth and chuckled softly, her voice clear and melodious. Southern bank of the Lingxi sect, everyone looked up at the sky, watching Bai Xiaochun's group of hundreds of people majestically flying towards the Dao Seed Mountain. Inside, Bai Xiaochun's boastful voice and smug laughter rang out. "Let me tell you, these past few years, my cultivation has been earth-shattering. I snatched a foundation establishment pill from a crowd, caused an entire sacred mountain to collapse, and with a single sword strike, killed more than 10 foundation establishment cultivators. My calculations are brilliant, my magical power boundless. How many powerful figures tremble and bow before me? How many Che condensation disciples turn pale and beg for my forgiveness under my gaze?" Bai Xiaochun's voice was loud and full of boastfulness, echoing everywhere. The noisy crowd around him all laughed. Clearly, no one believed his story, but their smiles were genuine, and the expressions on their faces showed they missed him, felt a sense of nostalgia, and even anticipation. To them, Bai Xiaochun was a fellow disciple, a friend they could entrust their lives to. Although he was mischievous, in crucial moments he could often turn the tide. Although he was often troublesome, in life or death situations he could reassure them. As a Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment cultivator, his name was on the inheritance list, but they didn't see any arrogance in Bai Xiaochun. Instead, they saw all sorts of silly antics that made them laugh and cry at the same time, making Bai Xiaochun seem not aloof and superior, but incredibly close and a true friend. This feeling was especially strong for Hou Yangfei. He looked at Bai Xiaochun and at Hou Xiaomei, who always followed Bai Xiaochun, his face always smiling, a smile that held a blessing. Hou Xiaomei blushed with embarrassment, her heart pounding, her mind filled with the image of Bai Xiaochun holding her just now, her eyes sparkling as she looked at him. That expression was very similar to Song Junwan's. Bai Xiaochun was exhilarated, looking at everyone. The familiar faces brought back memories of his time at Lingxi sect. This warm feeling of home moved Bai Xiaochun, and the earlier shouts and cheers were automatically forgotten. "You don't believe me. I, Bai Xiaochun, am very powerful. Even a nascent soul-old monster once praised me, and there was even one nascent soul-old monster who, after seeing me, wanted to adopt me as his son." Bai Xiaochun patted his chest, proudly declaring. "We believe you," Hou Yangfei said with a laugh, while Zhang Dapen and the others looked strange, also repeatedly saying they believed him. Bai Xiaochun was frustrated. He really wanted to tell everyone that he had been practicing alchemy in the bloodstream sect, vying for the blood ancestor's body with great prestige, and was the renowned blood son of the central peak. But no matter how he tried to say it, he couldn't. This feeling of having something but not being able to show it off made Bai Xiaochun very angry. "What I said is all true. I've been training outside and have become a powerful figure. I have a stunningly beautiful woman, and I absolutely won't marry anyone but her." As Bai Xiaochun said this, Hou Xiaomei narrowed her eyes and smiled. "Which stunningly beautiful woman, Xiaochun brother? Tell me the details." Bai Xiaochun immediately became wary, sensing a subtle killing intent from Hou Xiaomei. Just as he was thinking of a way to change the subject, a massive column of light suddenly shot up from the sea-down mountain, dozens of meters high, piercing straight into the blue sky. In the blink of an eye, the earth shook and the mountains trembled. The sky rumbled, the entire heaven and earth vibrated. Clouds suddenly appeared, gathering in one place to form a huge vortex, dazzling like a white sun. Within the vortex, a crow was hidden. The crow had its eyes closed, and an oppressive aura emanated from the vortex, enveloping the entire sky and earth, causing everyone to gasp for breath. Both the north and south banks of the Lingxi sect fell silent. Everyone stared intently at the pillar of light. Bai Xiaochun was terrified, not knowing what was happening. Even with my high status, there's no need for such a grand welcome upon my return, Bai Xiaochun muttered. Su Baokai swallowed hard, his face anxious. Hearing Bai Xiaochun's murmur, he gave him a disdainful glance and said softly, I heard a few days ago that the first group would be leaving today. It seems it's at this time. What first group leaving? Where are they going? Bai Xiaochun asked, bewildered. Go to the Luo Chen mountain range. Su Baotsai replied. Zikun, you've been gone for so long, you must have heard about the impending war between the Bloodstream sect and our Spirit Stream sect, right? This battle can't be fought within the Spirit Stream sect. The sect has decided that the battle will take place in the Luo Chen mountain range, relying on the Luo Chen mountain range's grand formation to decisively fight the Bloodstream sect. Hou Yunfei's eyes gleamed. After breaking through to the foundation establishment stage, his status in the sect had completely changed. He had become a disciple of a supreme elder and had access to a great deal of information. Bai Zikun was startled. War, unexpectedly, was so close. Today is the day the sect fulfills its tradition of sending the first group of cultivators to the Luo Chen mountain range. Hou Yan Fei said. A solemn and majestic voice echoed from within the Sea-Dao mountain, reverberating throughout the Spirit Stream sect. The first group of disciples to be teleported. Come here immediately. Bai Xiaochun saw streams of rainbow light rushing towards the Dao cultivation mountain from both the north and south banks. These rainbow-colored lights carried foundation establishment cultivators, great perfection check condensation cultivators, and many disciples who hadn't yet reached the flying stage, all rushing towards the Dao cultivation mountain. Among these rainbow-colored lights, Bai Xiaochun saw Guya and Bei Hanlai, their aura far stronger than ordinary cultivators, like two shooting stars. This first group consisted of over 2,000 cultivators, including a supreme elder. Finally, from within the swirling vortex in the sky, a figure emerged, a middle-aged man whose cultivation aura was even stronger than that of the supreme elder. Bai Xiaochun immediately recognized him. It was Li Zimo, the one who had helped Taidan years ago and later spoken with the Song family's ancestor, one of the 5 great ancestors of the Lingxi sect. The 3rd generation ancestor, someone exclaimed. The first group of cultivators had gathered on the summit of Mount Changdao. Li Ziming swung his right hand, and the pillar of light on Mount Changdao blazed, radiating a brilliant aura that enveloped everyone. In a flash, over 2,000 cultivators vanished. They were teleported away, but the pillar of light on Mount Changdao remained connected to the sky, continuously erupting with explosions. The auras on other mountains also intensified, each seemingly wanting to shoot up into a pillar of light. Hou Yunfei's voice echoed, they were the first group. The second group will also be teleported in a few days. I'm on the second group's list. Bai Xiaochun was startled and looked at Hou Yunfei. Many people in Bai Xiaochun's group also murmured, stating their group numbers. Bai Xiaochun realized that everyone here, even the check condensation cultivators, and even Hou Yunfei herself, were on the list of participants. This battle was a life-or-death battle for the Lingxi sect. I heard Master say that the Luo Chen mountain range is a grand formation that our Lingxi sect set up in the past, specifically to guard against the Bloodstream sect's invasion. That grand formation was built and reinforced by generations of Lingxi sect, and it's extraordinary. Although the Bloodstream sect is strong, it's still uncertain who will win this battle, Zhang Dapeng said. Absolutely correct. The Bloodstream sect is too arrogant. Even if our Lingxi sect agrees to those conditions, it would be tantamount to surrender. It's better to stand up and fight. Since joining the Lingxi sect, this place has been my home. I'm a Lingxi sect member in life and a Lingxi sect ghost in death. This battle is unavoidable. Whether we win or lose, we'll fight to the death. Everyone around Bai Xiaochun chimed in. their eyes filled with killing intent. Not only these people, but at this moment, almost everyone in the Lingxi sect was filled with murderous intent. Some suppressed it deep in their hearts, while others spoke it out loud. Bai Xiaochun returned late. Although he hadn't seen or heard firsthand how the Lingxi sect was preparing for war during this period, he could imagine that the entire Lingxi sect, from top to bottom, was united and giving their all for the battle. Speaking of the bloodstream sect, Xiaochun, you've been out training. Have you heard about the emergence of an astonishing prodigy named Yi Zhang, who has just been promoted to Central Peak Blood Sun? Hou Yunfei asked. Bai Xiaochun, who was worried about the impending war between the two sects, lowered his eyes upon hearing Hou Yunfei's question. I, along with Bei Hanlai, Guya, and Shangguan Tieyu, have an agreement. If anyone sees Yi Zhang on the battlefield, we'll team up to kill him. Zikun, you'll join in then. Hou Yunfei's eyes flashed with killing intent. Since breaking through to the foundation establishment stage, Hou Yunfei's demeanor had completely changed, and he cherished his friendship with Bai Zikun even more. Bai Zikun was terrified, licking his lips, about to speak, but the people around him, upon hearing the name Yi Zhang, all flared up with killing intent. Even Su Baoxai gritted his teeth, especially Zhang Dapan, his eyes blazing with fire. Only Hou Yunfei seemed frightened. Yi Zhang is extremely ferocious, killing countless people. I heard that he likes to suck human blood. If he doesn't devour a certain amount of fresh blood every day, he becomes irritable. I heard it's related to the cultivation technique he practices. One person in the group snorted. Likes to suck human blood? Bai Xiaochun's eyes widened in disbelief. He carefully considered the possibility. Such a thing couldn't possibly exist. I heard that Yi Zhang has a twisted personality, is an extremely lecherous individual, notoriously wicked in the bloodstream sect, but also incredibly cruel and ruthless, suppressing all those who resist. A young man in the group gritted his teeth. Extremely lecherous, twisted personality. Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath. No matter how he thought about it, this description didn't fit him. That's nothing. I also heard that Yi Zhang has a penchant for corpse refining, which is infuriating. Su Bao chimed in resentfully. Bai Xiaochun's eyes widened in astonishment. But he's truly a prodigy. He was initially unknown, just a mortal foundation establishment cultivator. But he developed so rapidly that he suppressed both Zhu Mei and the Central Peak Grand Elder, and even suppressed Song Qiu, becoming the Blood Sun. I heard that an ancestor of the Bloodstream sect adopted him as his foster son. This Night Burial's alchemy is also very demonic. He's known as the Warm Demon. Everyone chimed in, and when mentioning the elixirs with the name Warm Demon, several people turned to look at Bai Xiaochun, making Bai Xiaochun tremble. Is that night burial really that bad? It must all be just rumors. Bai Xiaochun instinctively wanted to explain, but before he could finish, Zhang Daopeng swung his fist. Xiaochun, you don't know. The most terrifying thing about night burial isn't his ferocity, but his divination ability. He practically knows everything. He can calculate anything with just a flick of his finger. Everything in the world, everything in your heart, everything related to you. He can calculate it all. This person must be eliminated. Zhang Dapeng, afraid Bai Xiaochun would underestimate him, quickly said. Everyone around him chimed in agreement. Bai Xiaochun stared blankly at Zhang Dapeng, recalling the time he returned to the sect in the guise of Yi Zhang. That's right, this guy can't be allowed to live. Damn it, if I, Su Baoxai, had that kind of divine power, I wouldn't regret dying. As far as I know, people in our sect have formed a team of more than 10 to kill Yi Zhang. Those on the inheritance list have also made their presence known, saying they will kill Zuzi in the battle to establish their authority. Even the Supreme Elders are plotting to kill him. I even heard the sect master say that whoever kills Zuzi will be heavily rewarded. So as soon as the battle begins, Yi Zhang is sure to die. Su Baoxai gritted his teeth. Bai Xiaochun's forehead was covered in sweat, feeling very wronged. He remembered that when he transformed into Yi Zhang, he hadn't offended so many people. Why did everyone want to kill him? Hearing that those on the inheritance list and the Supreme Elder were also participating, and even the sect master had offered words of encouragement, Bai Xiaochun's heart trembled even more. Just as he was about to speak, the majestic voice of sect master Zheng Yuandong echoed from the Dao Mountain. Bai Xiaochun, come see me quickly. Bai Bai Xiaochun almost jumped up, his face turning pale. Instinctively, he reached up to touch his face, confirming that he wasn't wearing a mask, before quickly flying to Zhang Yuandong. Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath and entered the hall, seeing Zhang Yuandong standing with his back to the outside. In the main hall, the lamps flickered dimly, and a vague pressure existed. Bai Xiaochun, already feeling uneasy, trembled even more at the sight, looking at Zhang Yuandong. "My dear sect master, Bai Xiaochun, you are truly audacious." Zhang Yuandong spun around, his eyes like lightning, his voice booming, his foundation establishment great perfection cultivation fully unleashed, vaguely showing a hint of the golden core realm aura. If it were about the oppressive aura generated by cultivation, Bai Xiaochun felt nothing, but he already respected Zhang Yuandong and Li Qingou, so when the other party shouted, he immediately felt uneasy, unconsciously thinking, could it be that the sect master already knows that I am Yi Zhang? Sect master senior brother, I was wrong? Bai Xiaochun's face was gloomy. Regardless of whether the other party knew Yi Zhang's identity or not, it was better to admit his mistake first. You dared to cause trouble, acting recklessly and foolishly. It's one thing for you to go out to train, but you even concealed your aura. Do you know how many people want to kill you? The 4 blood sons of the Bloodstream sect even swore an oath to kill you. What if they find you? The sect had to tell the outside world that you were in seclusion, secretly searching for you, practically turning the entire Donglan continent upside down. Zhang Yuandong was furious. Bai Xiaochun glared, let out a soft sigh, and, moved, obediently bowed his head and admitted his mistake. Zhang Yuandong scolded him for a while, but seeing that Bai Xiaochun seemed to realize his mistake, he snorted. However, seeing that Bai Xiaochun's cultivation had reached the mid-stage of foundation establishment, his expression softened, though he remained stern. All right, I won't ask why you had to conceal your aura, or where you went. You're not a child anymore. You must know your limits. I called you here to give you a task. Hearing this, Bai Xiaochun knew he was finished scolding. He patted his chest, assuming a serious demeanor, and said, Senior brother, please speak. Even if it means climbing a mountain of knives or descending into a sea of fire. As long as senior brother says the word, I, your junior brother, will not hesitate. Bai Xiaochun wanted to show off, but realizing he couldn't utter the word death, he said this with a commanding tone, but without any hint of guaranteeing his own completion of the task. Our Lingxi sect is about to wage war against the Zwexi sect. Your mission is to kill the most important of the 4 blood sons of the Zwexi sect on the battlefield. Yi Zhang? Zhang Yuandong flicked his sleeve, his voice stern. Huh? Bai Xiaochun inwardly groaned, feeling like he was going crazy. The Zwexi sect told him to kill Bai Xiaochun, and the Lingxi sect told him to kill Yi Zhang. This self-destructive act, Bai Xiaochun really didn't know what to do. He couldn't help but feel distressed. Zhang Yuandong saw Bai Xiaochun's strange expression and looked at him suspiciously. What's wrong with you? Any one of the blood sons of the Zwexi sect deserves to die. Bai Xiaochun was startled and quickly patted his chest. Senior brother, rest assured, that night burial has a twisted personality, loves to suck people's blood, commits endless evil deeds, is like a madman, everyone wants to kill him. I even heard that he seduced the Grand Elder of the Central Peak and is even favored by several ancestors of the Bloodstream sect. I will definitely kill this kind of person. Outwardly, Bai Xiaochun declared with righteous indignation, but inwardly he was filled with immeasurable sorrow. You seem to know quite a bit about Yi Zhang, Zhang Yuandong said in surprise. Bai Xiaochun inwardly groaned, wondering why he'd blurted that out, and quickly tried to cover it up. Bai Xiaochun is a righteous person, and while traveling, I've often heard about that madman Yi Zhang, senior brother sect master. Rest assured, I, Bai Xiaochun, guarantee I will complete the mission. Zhang Yuandong looked at Bai Xiaochun, his expression softening. With your Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment and your mid-stage foundation establishment cultivation, you will definitely kill the Yi Zhang. I will arrange for others to cooperate with you, including several Supreme Elders and those on the inheritance list, to give you a chance. You must remember, you must complete the mission to kill Zhu Zi. As long as you accomplish this, even if you haven't reached the Golden Core stage yet, you will be included on the inheritance list. The list of lineages is the foundation of our Lingxi sect. Even when there's nothing left, the sect will dedicate all its resources to it. Zhang Yuandong said slowly, his gaze filled with profound meaning as he looked at Bai Xiaochun. The implication in his words moved Bai Xiaochun, warming his heart. He understood this was the sect master's guidance. Even after the defeat of the Lingxi sect, he still had a path reserved for him. Perhaps the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment could also help Bai Xiaochun maintain his fame, but if he achieved the feat of killing Zuzi, he would also be included in the list. You've just returned. Go pay your respects to your master, then rest. As for going to the battlefield, you belong to the 4th teleportation group. Zhang Yuandong continued. Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath, bowed to Zhang Yuandong, but didn't leave immediately. Instead, he inquired about Li Qinghu's situation. When Li Qinghu was in seclusion, he didn't say much, and Bai Xiaochun thought it was just a normal seclusion. Thinking back now, he realized that seclusion to break through to the Golden Core stage was not as simple as it seemed. Your Uncle Li has successfully formed his Golden Core and been included in the inheritance list. He's currently consolidating his cultivation and is about to come out of seclusion, Zhang Yuandong said with a smile. Bai Xiaochun was excited, bowed, and left. After leaving the main hall, Bai Xiaochun paid his respects to his master's portrait before returning to his cave dwelling. Tai Dan was already waiting, and upon seeing Bai Xiaochun, he ran over. Did you recognize me last time? Bai Xiaochun patted Tai Dan a few times. Tai Dan nodded quickly, muttering, How about that? Isn't your father amazing? He's been running rampant in the Bloodstream sect, and no one dares to provoke him. Bai Xiaochun was smug, about to brag, when he suddenly realized how much Tai Dan had changed. Looking closely, he was startled to discover that Tai Dan's cultivation had almost reached the late foundation establishment stage, causing a pang in his heart. How come you're cultivating so fast? Bai Xiaochun felt it was unfair. He thought about how he had worked so hard facing life and death situations, and devoted himself to cultivation just to reach the mid-stage of foundation establishment, while Tai Dan just wandered around aimlessly every day, yet he was no less skilled than him. Tai Dan, beaming with pride, let out a few loud cries. Others couldn't understand its meaning, but Bai Xiaochun, having raised it from a young age, understood perfectly. He widened his eyes and took a deep breath. The head of Yanwei Peak gives you elixirs every day. The first ancestor frequently strengthens your meridians. That old dragon frequently gives you its lifeblood to drink. You even went to the secret realm. Bai Xiaochun felt incredibly jealous, glaring at Tai Dan. Tell me, during this time, did you still steal any undergarments? Tai Dan roared a few more times. Man and beast, they talk like this until dusk. Bai Xiaochun thought that with Tai Dan's current cultivation level, he might one day be surpassed by it, so he ended the conversation and hurriedly sat down to cultivate. Practicing the purple Che through heaven technique, people came to visit every day, until it gradually quieted down after a few days. During these days, Bai Xiaochun met and chatted with many people, realizing that the Lingxi sect had changed significantly. When he left, the Lingxi sect focused on cultivation, and although there was always competition, it was fine. Gossip was heard everywhere, but everything was generally lighthearted. But today, almost everyone seemed heavy-hearted, and the entire Lingxi sect was filled with pressure. Everyone was trying to prepare for the coming storm. The Lingxi sect had never been as powerful as it was now. Goods in the market below the mountain had almost all been sold out, and transactions between disciples within the sect were several times more expensive. Especially spirit medicines, talismans, consumables for combat, and magic treasures, they had become things that couldn't be bought even with money. Spirit refining was extremely bustling at Purple Peak Mountain these days, with a constant stream of people coming to refine spirits. Many people came to Bai Xiaochun, hoping he would refine medicine for them, even though they knew his alchemy skills were terrifying. But they still hoped. Bai Xiaochun understood the situation, frowning as he sat outside his cave dwelling, looking down at the distant mountains. From this vantage point, he could see the entire beautiful landscape of the Lingxi sect. Looking at the familiar mountain ranges, at the rushing Tongshan River, Bai Xiaochun thought about the cause and effect of this war. The middle region, the Conch Academy, Bai Xiaochun murmured. The position to replace the Conch Academy was an indescribable aspiration for those in the lower region. Is it worth it? Bai Xiaochun sighed softly. Deep down, he didn't want the two sects to fight. Perhaps in the eyes of others, the Bloodstream sect was a brutal demonic sect, but to Bai Xiaochun, he felt that the Bloodstream sect had been very good to him. A mere Void Realm Academy might not seem worthwhile, but if it increases the hope for the Patriarch's breakthrough, enhances the sect's potential for boundless growth, and provides disciples with a more abundant spiritual energy environment for cultivation, then naturally, it will be different. A gentle voice suddenly rang out from behind Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun was stunned, turning his head to see Li Qing'o, dressed in a green robe, smiling brightly behind him. The Li Qing'o now was different from the Li Qing'o Bai Xiaochun once knew. Everything was more restrained, his imposing presence somewhat diminished, but he felt a huge vortex within Li Qing'o, a vortex that, once unleashed, would cause unfathomable earth-shattering events. This kind of feeling was something even some supreme elders couldn't match. Bai Xiaochun's eyes widened, and after a long pause, he exclaimed, "Uncle Li." Bai Xiaochun was excited. It had been a long time since he'd seen Li Qing'o. He jumped up excitedly and hugged Li Qing'o. Li Qing'o smiled and patted Bai Xiaochun's head. "Yes, you've grown quite a bit." In Li Qing'o's eyes, Bai Xiaochun would forever be the little boy he'd brought up the mountain 13 times, the one he'd taken up there. Just a simple sentence, but it made Bai Xiaochun's eyes well up with tears. Back at the Bloodstream sect, he had to conceal his whereabouts, and his longing for Li Qing'o had to be buried deep in his heart. After returning to the Spirit Stream sect, he felt that Li Qing'o's seclusion was unusual. Now, seeing Li Qing'o successfully form a golden core with his own eyes, Bai Xiaochun was overjoyed, even more so than when he had successfully refined high-grade elixirs. "Xiaochun, war isn't as simple as you think." Li Qing'o sat down. "Besides what I just mentioned, there's also the strengthening of the sect's foundation, the control of resources in the downstream areas, and the struggle for personal fame and fortune. Therefore, everything is different. The battle between the Zhuangzi sect and the Dangxi sect has reached its final stage. The Dangxi sect suffered a crushing defeat, with nearly half of its disciples joining the Zhuangzi sect. Although the Zhuangzi sect suffered considerable losses, they quickly replenished their ranks. They are now destroying the last remaining mountain gate of the Dangxi sect, and after some time, they will become even stronger than before. But right now, besides destroying the Dangxi sect, the Zhuangzi sect also needs to sort out the disarray and differences between the old and new members. This is arguably the weakest point for the Zhuangzi sect. They need to quickly eliminate the Dangxi sect and reorganize their sect. The Bloodstream sect delayed their attack until now because they wanted to concentrate all their efforts on forcing our Lingxi sect to comply with their conditions. They want to seal our sect, Li Qing'o slowly explained. "Must we fight? Is there no other way?" Bai Xiaochun hesitated, wanting to say something. "Don't overthink it. This battle is unavoidable. Whichever sect wants to advance to the middle ranks will inevitably face a war sooner or later. If we don't fight now, a compromise will create immense trouble in the future. It's better to use all our strength to open a path forward," Li Qing'o said softly. "This war is unavoidable. The Bloodstream sect is unavoidable, and so are we, but we can't avoid it. Even if we agree to forego the promotion qualification, people won't believe us. All promises between sects are lies, unless there's a way to make the two sects trust each other, but that's impossible." Li Qing'o shook his head, looking at Bai Xiaochun. "Don't overthink it. Just remember, on the battlefield, always stay close to me. This time, I'm afraid many people will die." Li Qing'o sighed, stood up, and seeing Bai Xiaochun lost in thought, gently patted his shoulder. "Let's go. I'll take you to meet an elder, my master." Bai Xiaochun was startled. This was the first time he'd heard Li Qing'o mention his master. Anyone who could be Li Qing'o's master would at least have to be a supreme elder, possibly one of the 5 patriarchs of the Lingxi sect. Bai Xiaochun didn't think about it any further and followed Li Qing'o out of the Seed Mountain. He was surprised to find Li Qing'o heading towards an open area behind the Seed Mountain. There was nothing there except the rushing Tongshan River flowing into the distance. The existence that is not existence is called wondrous existence. The emptiness that is not nothingness is called true emptiness. Li Qing'o didn't turn around, speaking indifferently, continuing to walk. Bai Xiaochun frowned, feeling that these words seemed to contain some profound hidden meaning. He thought for a long time but couldn't figure it out, yet he felt that Li Qing'o seemed much more imposing after saying this. The two had reached an open area. Bai Xiaochun pondered, his third eye opening. Li Qing'o turned to look at him, his eyes showing admiration. He stopped walking and stood still, watching to see if Bai Xiaochun could discern anything. With his heaven-penetrating Dharma eye open, Bai Xiaochun looked around, but saw nothing. Bai Xiaochun thought for a moment, then released his third-level cultivation into the heaven-penetrating Dharma eye. And the aura of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment also merged into the Dharma eye. His third eye ached, but amidst the pain, he saw the world before him suddenly twist and become blurry, revealing a mountain even larger than the Tao Seed Mountain towering right in front of him. "A mountain!" Bai Xiaochun exclaimed, his brow furrowed in disbelief. He gasped for breath, unable to believe it. "You've seen it. Our Lingxi sect has always only had the sect master, the lineage leader, and the supreme elders who knew." This ninth mountain, a hoarse, aged voice suddenly emerged from the void. An old man in a light pinkish blue robe with snow-white hair slowly materialized from the void and stepped out. The old man had a ruddy complexion, a large red mole the size of a fingernail between his eyebrows, and despite his white hair, he had few wrinkles. His eyes were sharp and fierce like lightning, and in his right hand he held a four-colored jade pendant radiating light in all directions. "Greetings, Master." Li Qingou clasped his hands and bowed slightly to the old man. Bai Xiaochun greets the ancestor. Although Bai Xiaochun had never met the old man before, the intense aura and killing intent emanating from him allowed him to guess the other party's identity. The old man glanced at Bai Xiaochun, a slight smile playing on his lips. But combined with the killing intent, this smile looked extremely ferocious. "Not on the inheritance list, yet you've seen something you shouldn't have seen. Little brat, do you know your crime?" A terrifying wave of killing intent descended upon Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun trembled, his face turning pale. "Master, you scared Xiaochun to death," Li Qingou stammered. Bai Xiaochun was truly terrified. The old man's smile was unsettling, his killing intent making his hair stand on end. His blood almost bursting out in an attempt to match the old man's level of killing intent. The old man chuckled, waved his right hand, and a layer of mist enveloped him, leaving only his outline visible. "That's all, but I'll remember this time. Next time, if you make a mistake, you'll be punished along with me." Bai Xiaochun feigned obedience, but inwardly scoffed, thinking this old man was deliberately trying to intimidate him, like a test. Humph, he knew this trick back when he was a blood disciple at the Bloodstream sect. "Old man, you are the master of my uncle, so you must be my grandmother. Grandmother above, please accept this humble bow." Bai Xiaochun, feeling resentful, glanced around, respectfully bowed, then looked up, patted his storage bag, took out a bottle of medicine, and offered it with both hands. "Grandmother, this is our first meeting. This is the most precious elixir I possess. Everyone who has used it praises it endlessly. Its effects are boundless. I offer it to you as a token of my filial piety. Please accept it, grandmother." Bai Xiaochun said, his eyes fixed on the multicolored jade pendant in the old man's hand. That jade pendant was undoubtedly a treasure. Li Qingou felt a headache. If it were someone else doing this filial piety to an elder, he wouldn't have any objections. But it was Bai Xiaochun. Li Qingou felt something was amiss, something strange, especially seeing what Bai Xiaochun was staring at. He smiled wryly, vaguely guessing Bai Xiaochun's intentions. Pretending to be filial and offering a gift to an elder, but actually wanting a gift in return. The old ancestor in the mist was startled, looked at Bai Xiaochun more closely, then thought he had guessed Bai Xiaochun's intentions and burst into laughter. "So you want to ask for my meeting gift? I'll take the elixir, but I'll give you this jade pendant." After saying that, the four-colored jade pendant flew out of the mist, hovering in front of Bai Xiaochun, while the spiritual medicine also flew into the mist. Bai Xiaochun was surprised. He hadn't actually intended to, so this unexpected gain made him feel a little embarrassed. However, without hesitation, he took the jade pendant, examining it closely, and discovered that it contained a hidden power, similar to the lamp the Song family's ancestor had given him. It's a spiritual treasure for cultivators in the core formation realm. Your cultivation is still low, but if you use the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment technique to activate it, you can use it. The old man chuckled, looking at Bai Xiaochun a few more times before turning and leaving. "Qingou, this child isn't bad. You can teach him the herb and plant cultivation technique." "Thank you, master." Li Qingou bowed respectfully, his purpose in bringing Bai Xiaochun here being to obtain his master's permission to teach Bai Xiaochun the herb and plant military technique. Because Bai Xiaochun was not his disciple, his lineage was entirely different. With the patriarch's permission, Li Qing'o blared at Bai Xiaochun, then led him back to the Xidao mountain. Upon arriving at Bai Xiaochun's cave dwelling, Li Qing'o took out the secret technique, the herb and plant weapon transformation art, and imparted it to Bai Xiaochun. The herb and plant weapon transformation art isn't about controlling power, but rather a method of utilizing herbs to transform into combat power. In the heavens and earth, every blade of grass possesses sentience. If you know how to activate that sentience, you can generate a certain power. That's the basic principle. If you can combine many different herbs to form something like a formation, the power will increase even more. The herb and plant weapon transformation art is about transforming wood into weapons. The so-called formation-like formation here isn't actually a formation, but rather a pill formula. Not a pill formula used in alchemy, but a formula for combining herbs to gain lethal power. This cultivation technique requires a certain level of herbal skill. With Bai Xiaochun's level of alchemy, he understood it immediately after hearing it once, without needing Li Qing'o to explain much. The jade slip already contained the technique. Only a few key points needed to be explained, and Bai Xiaochun could cultivate it himself. Most importantly, the jade slip Li Qing'o gave him recorded 18 types of elixir formulas discovered by the ancestors of the Lingxi sect. Li Qing'o left at sunset, but before leaving, he remembered the elixir Bai Xiaochun had given his master and asked, "What kind of elixir did you give to Ancestor Taimu?" Ancestor Taimu, of course, it's the most precious elixir I currently possess, one I made myself. A renowned elixir in the Lingxi sect. Bai Xiaochun blinked, feeling a little guilty, but there was nothing he could do, so he tilted his chin and answered proudly. Upon hearing this, Li Qinghu's expression changed drastically. His eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Bai Xiaochun, only speaking after a long pause. Aphrodisiac pill? Bai Xiaochun felt guilty, nodding slightly. Seeing Li Qinghu's face turn pale, Bai Xiaochun quickly explained, "It's a good thing. I'm not lying. Everyone who's used it says it's good. Even the old dragon on the North Shore praises it endlessly." I think the old ancestor is getting old. Li Qing'o looked up, his head buzzing. After a long pause, he glared at Bai Xiaochun, then hurriedly flew to the 9th mountain. Bai Xiaochun felt guilty, thinking to himself, "I really wasn't lying. That pill is indeed very precious. Who told that old man to scare me? Bai Xiaochun has experienced everything. How could he possibly scare me to death?" Bai Xiaochun felt terrified. After thinking for a moment, he didn't dare stay any longer, quickly calling for Tai Dan and running to the North Shore. Bai Xiaochun and Tai Dan quietly slipped into the animal enclosure, only then feeling relieved. With Tai Dan here, with Lao Long here, even if old man Taimu wants to teach me a lesson, I have someone to help me. Bai Xiaochun sighed, feeling that being in the bloodstream sect was truly good. With his blood demon status, no ancestor dared to lecture him. He only needed to extend a finger to suppress half of their cultivation. After expressing his feelings, Bai Xiaochun sighed, intending to call Tai Dan, only to realize that Tai Dan had already run off to play. Tai Dan must have gone to do something naughty again. Bai Xiaochun thought about how Tai Dan did nothing all day, yet his cultivation level was almost as high as his own. He felt a sense of injustice and impatience. No, I must seize the time to cultivate and strive to break through to the mid-stage foundation establishment and enter the late-stage foundation establishment as soon as possible. Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath, took out the little turtle, and vigorously shook it. The turtle's head, tail, and 4 legs kept hitting the shell. But after shaking it for a long time, the fragrant scent still didn't appear, and Bai Xiaochun was unhappy. "I endured countless hardships and risked my life to bring you, little turtle, to this. It's one thing to deceive me by saying you're some kind of eternal and indestructible object, but why won't you even give me a little benefit, or release any fragrance for me?" Bai Xiaochun glared, shaking the turtle shell even harder. After shaking it for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, a faint, fragrant scent finally wafted out from within the shell. Bai Xiaochun was overjoyed. He took a deep breath, inhaling the fragrant aroma, and circulated the purple cha through heaven technique. The surrounding spiritual energy surged into him. Of the 9 layers of spiritual sea within him, the first 3 had already crystallized, and now the 4th layer was beginning to show signs of crystallization. A drop of the heaven-connecting river he had drunk also dissolved, continuously being absorbed by the fourth layer of spiritual sea. Bai Xiaochun was incredibly excited. It's working, haha. This little turtle isn't entirely bad after all. Bai Xiaochun calmed his mind and focused his energy, making the crystallization of the fourth layer of spiritual sea even more stable. After a night, he had completed about 2/3 of the process. Although Bai Xiaochun wanted to progress faster, he couldn't do anything about it, so he had to patiently continue pushing forward. 3 days quickly passed, and Tai Dan staggered back, carrying many bibs of various colors in his mouth. He had intended to pounce into Bai Xiaochun's arms, but seeing Bai Xiaochun cultivating, he abandoned his playful intentions and lay outside the room, keeping a watchful eye on his surroundings. To it, the entire Lingxi sect, everyone, every animal, even heaven and earth, were not as important as Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun is its very life. At this moment, if anyone dared to disturb Bai Xiaochun or harbor ill will towards him, Tai Dan would risk its life to stop them. Tai Dan, the battle beast of the northern shore, also sensed this seriousness and became incredibly quiet. The masters of the battle beasts were astonished to see their usual battle beasts automatically flying over, displaying a vigilant, protective stance around the 100 Beasts courtyard. The battle beasts in the inner courtyard of the 100 Beasts courtyard did it even more fiercely. By afternoon, Bai Xiaochun's 4th level Spirit Sea had almost reached 90% completion of the transformation into Essence stage. Suddenly, the light on the peak of Ghostfang Peak on the northern shore and Qingfeng Mountain on the southern shore seemed to have reached its limit. The entire Sea Dao Mountain roared, and a massive column of light shot up into the sky. Boom! A deafening sound shook the ground and churned the sky as two enormous beams of light pierced the blue clouds. The disciples of the Lingxi sect all witnessed it, murmuring amongst themselves. The second teleportation group is about to begin. Figures rushed out of the mountain, flying towards Qingfeng Mountain and Gia Peak. A few days ago, the first group, led by Ancestor Li Ziming, totaling over 2,000 people, had already been teleported to the Luochen mountain range. The second group, in terms of numbers, far surpassed the first, reaching nearly 5,000 people. Su Tang, Gong Xinyan, Ho Yangfei, and several other prodigies were in this group, along with many inner disciples, all flying away in a rush. Everyone had a solemn expression, their eyes blazing with battle intent. Several powerful streaks of rainbow light flashed by. These were the Supreme Elders. After the Supreme Elder appeared, several figures in golden robes emerged. Their forms were indistinct, but the aura emanating from them surpassed that of the Supreme Elder. While not as powerful as the Ancestor, it was enough to shock the cultivators in the sect. Those figures in golden robes, are they? The inheritance list. The golden figures immediately became the focus of everyone's attention. They were the people on the inheritance list. Not all of them had appeared yet, but each of them was an unparalleled genius of their generation. After the inheritance list appeared, one of the 5 ancestors also stepped forward. This person was a young man, but his eyes held the weariness of countless years. I am Qiyue. Qiyue ancestor's face was solemn, his voice resounding. For the Lingxi sect. The Lingxi sect disciples clamored, finishing the sentence. Fight! Ancestor Qiyue chuckled softly, waved his sleeve, and with a loud bang, the mountains blazed brightly, creating a teleportation force. Nearly 5,000 people on the 2 mountains vanished in an instant. The remaining people's eyes blazed with fighting spirit, and they couldn't help but turn to look at the 5 remaining mountains that hadn't yet emitted any light beams. When the next light beam appeared, it meant the 3rd teleportation group would also begin. The 4th layer of the spiritual sea within Bai Xiaochun was undergoing its final transformation. After a long while, Bai Xiaochun opened his eyes flashing brightly. The 4th layer of the spiritual sea had completed its transformation. As soon as he opened his eyes, Tai Dan outside the door knew immediately and rushed into the room, letting out a joyful roar. Bai Xiaochun smiled, about to speak, when the beasts in the inner courtyard, hearing Tai Dan's roar, all raised their heads and roared. The battle beasts outside the courtyard also roared in response. I only made a small breakthrough. There's no need for such a big celebration. Bai Xiaochun whispered, looking at Tai Dan. Tai Dan felt ashamed and bowed his head. You, Tai Dan, you can control those war beasts? Bai Xiaochun asked hesitantly. Tai Dan nodded, and Bai Xiaochun gasped, taking a deep breath, his eyes widening in disbelief. Actually, when he returned to the Lingxi sect in his night burial form, he had vaguely sensed that Taiden seemed to be able to command all the war beasts. But at that time, he didn't feel comfortable asking, nor did he examine it closely. But today, everything was clear. "You're a beast, King." Bai Xiaochun admired him, feeling smug, his eyes shining. He felt that having Taiden in his hands was equivalent to holding half of the Lingxi sect in his grasp. Bai Xiaochun was excited, laughing loudly, finally rediscovering the feeling he once had in the Bloodstream sect. However, this feeling had only just begun to surface when Bai Xiaochun experienced a different emotion. His heart was filled with conflicting feelings. He was both overjoyed to see Taiden become stronger, yet also felt he couldn't be inferior to Taiden. "My Taiden is stronger than before. I must become stronger too." Bai Xiaochun gritted his teeth, picked up the little turtle, and shook it again, more and more vigorously, wanting to continue cultivating. But now he had been shaking it for almost half an hour. Even his fingers were a little numb. But the little turtle, like a puppet, still didn't emit any fragrance. Bai Xiaochun felt a little helpless, thinking the little turtle was too useless, so he gave up, sat down cross-legged, propped his chin on his hand, and silently pondered. Although Taiden was very intelligent, it didn't know Bai Xiaochun's conflicting emotions. Seeing that Bai Xiaochun was ignoring it, it simply ran outside to play. For the past few days, because it was protecting Bai Xiaochun, it hadn't gone out to play. Now, as soon as it ran out the door, it let out a loud cry and ran far away. Bai Xiaochun watched Taiden happily run off, sighed and frowned, continuing to think. "There must be some way to improve my cultivation. It can only be a spiritual medicine." But which spiritual medicine could have this effect? Bai Xiaochun thought of the various remedies he had, but after much thought, none seemed suitable. Most only provided very slow improvements. Just as Bai Xiaochun was about to resign himself to his fate, he suddenly looked up, slapped his thigh, and his eyes lit up. Reverse River Pill. That's right, there's also the Reverse River Pill. Bai Xiaochun was overjoyed. He took out the Reverse River Pill jade slip from his storage bag, then rummaged around for a while and took out the Cold Gate medicinal scroll. Before he comprehended the sacred pill fragments, he couldn't understand this scroll at all, but later he vaguely understood a little and gained a lot from it. At this moment, after carefully studying it, he took out the jade slip containing the Reverse River Pill and pondered. No herbs are needed, but the water from the Tangshan River is used for refining. And no alchemy furnace is needed, but the body itself is used as a furnace, Bai Xiaochun muttered. Back then, he found this formula very strange, but now that his alchemy skills had improved, and after refining the Tangshan River water with the purple Cha Tangshan technique, Bai Xiaochun gradually understood a few things. Although he didn't understand everything, that much was enough to make him dizzy. After a while, Bai Xiaochun's eyes flashed, and he immediately went outside, heading to the north bank of the Tangshan River. The banks of the Tangshan River are one of the forbidden areas of the sect. Even inner disciples cannot approach without permission. Only those with foundation establishment cultivation, who later become elders of the sect, can approach the Tangshan River annually, and even then, only according to a set number of times. The spiritual energy emanating from the Tangshan River allows for surprisingly rapid cultivation. The spiritual energy here is simply too intense. Even foundation establishment cultivators couldn't withstand it for long, leading to chaotic spiritual power and potential physical breakdown. At this moment, as Bai Xiaochun arrived, he saw a man and a woman sitting not far away, both absorbing the spiritual energy of the Tangshan River. The woman wore a light blue robe, her appearance beautiful. When she closed her eyes, her eyelashes trembled slightly, and her skin was incredibly smooth. Bai Xiaochun's expression brightened when he saw her clearly. "I said it, after returning this time, I felt like something was missing. It turns out I didn't see my junior disciple, Chu Xinqi. She clearly came here. This girl was indeed Chu Xinqi." Bai Xiaochun observed Chu Xinqi several times, and when he looked at the man, Bai Xiaochun frowned, feeling a little uneasy. That man was none other than Shangguan Tianyu. It was unclear what cultivation technique Shangguan Tianyu was practicing, but his black hair had turned golden, cascading over his shoulders. Combined with his already enviable face, it now possessed even greater charm. His aura had also changed. If they stood together, without mentioning his name, people would assume Shangguan Tianyu was the true peerless genius, completely overshadowing Bai Xiaochun. What made Bai Xiaochun even more uncomfortable was the vertical pattern on Shangguan Tianyu's forehead, somewhat resembling Bai Xiaochun's own Tongshan Dharma eye, only this pattern wasn't an eye, but a vertical sword mark. A surge of sword energy emanated from his forehead, making Shangguan Tianyu's entire being seem like a sharp sword. I heard that Shangguan Tianyu had incredibly good fortune back then, not only possessing astonishing talent, but also resembling a reincarnated sword immortal. Now it seems those rumors weren't unfounded. Bai Xiaochun pondered, observing the distance between Shangguan Tianyu and Zhou Xinqi. He felt that there might have been some ambiguity between them while he wasn't at the Lingxi sect. Thinking this, Bai Xiaochun became even more uneasy. He tilted his chin up, snorted, and thought that he should find an opportunity later to let Zhou Xinqi know Shangguan Tianyu's true nature. He then withdrew his gaze, ignoring the two, and chose a spot by the riverbank, standing there intently watching the Tongshan River. Without cultivating the purple Che Tongshan technique, and without some special artifacts, Bai Xiaochun would have no way of obtaining this golden Tongshan River water. But now, with the purple Che Tongshan technique in hand, Bai Xiaochun stood by the river bank, calmly concentrating, preparing to collect some river water to refine the reverse river pill. In the distance, Shangguan Tianyu's eyes slightly opened, glancing at Bai Xiaochun. A hint of resentment lurked deep within his eyes. Bai Xiaochun had always been a thorn in his side, whether it was the war between the North and South before Foundation establishment, the events in the fallen sword abyss, or the despicable close-staring technique after Foundation establishment. All of these things fueled Shangguan Tianyu's deep-seated hatred for Bai Xiaochun. On the other side, Zhou Xinqi appeared to be cultivating, but her spiritual sense wasn't completely sealed. The moment Bai Xiaochun arrived, she noticed him. Her delicate eyebrows furrowed slightly, and her eyes slowly opened, quickly scanning towards Bai Xiaochun. For Zhou Xinqi, she had many conflicting feelings towards Bai Xiaochun. At first, she found him very enthusiastic, but then, after his terrifying transformation following the alchemy practice and the revelation of his identity as the crazy chicken thief, she couldn't quite grasp her feelings for him. Most importantly, after so many years, she no longer needed an answer to who that mysterious little turtle from Xiangyun Mountain really was. She had long since realized that the little turtle was Bai Xiaochun. In other words, it was impossible for a person to suddenly become a genius in alchemy. This answer also made her feel uneasy, like a collapse where imagination and reality clashed. Moreover, Bai Xiaochun really liked being addressed as uncle, which also gave Zhou Xinqi a headache. Seeing Bai Xiaochun standing by the bank of the Tongshan River, seemingly about to fetch some water, Zhou Xinqi decided to ignore him and was about to close her eyes to continue cultivating when her eyes suddenly widened. She saw that Bai Xiaochun wasn't taking out a magic artifact to fetch the river water, but was extending his right hand, as if intending to directly reach into the Tongshan River. Bai Xiaochun, what are you doing? Is the water of the Tongshan River something you can just touch? For Foundation establishment cultivators like us, even a little bit of this water will immediately. Zhou Xinqi immediately shouted. No matter what, they were fellow disciples, and Zhou Xinqi couldn't just stand by and watch him get hurt by the Tongshan River's water. Shangguan Tianyu also witnessed this scene, a cold smile playing on his lips, a mocking glint in his eyes. He secretly hoped Bai Xiaochun's arm would be dissolved by the Tongshan River, and he was somewhat displeased with Zhou Xinqi's warning. But despite his displeasure, the moment Zhou Xinqi spoke, Bai Xiaochun's right hand plunged into the river, scooping up a handful of yellow water. He tilted his head triumphantly, looking at Zhou Xinqi. What will happen? Bai Xiaochun coughed, feeling quite pleased by the feeling of showing off in front of Shangguan Tianyu. As he spoke, he shrugged and glanced at Zhou Xinqi. Zhou Xinqi stared blankly at Bai Xiaochun's right hand, where a few drops of the Tongshan River water still trickled down through the gaps between his fingers, dripping into the river. Shangguan Tianyu's eyes widened, his spirit shaken. He knew the terrifying power of the Tongshan River water, yet Bai Xiaochun was directly scooping it up. You! Zhou Xinqi couldn't believe it. Bai Xiaochun looked at their expressions, especially Shangguan Tianyu's, and felt even more pleased and delighted. He decisively took a drop of the Tongshan River water from his palm and drank it, then tilted his chin up and spoke indifferently. It's not that there's nothing to write about, nor is there nothing to write about, nor is there nothing to write about nothingness. He had heard these words from Li Qingao a few days ago. At the time, he felt they were very mysterious. Although he didn't know their meaning, he thought they would surely shock people. Now that he had the opportunity to express them, his whole being radiated a profound aura. Chu Xinqi's body trembled. Hearing these words, her breathing seemed to be constricted, as if she vaguely understood something, but upon careful reflection, there was nothing. Regardless, at this moment, in her eyes, Bai Xiaochun suddenly seemed much taller. Shangguan Tianyu's eyes shone even more intensely, staring intently at Bai Xiaochun, his expression filled with disbelief. He didn't understand these words, but he sensed a faint, hidden meaning within them. But even so, he couldn't believe that such profound words could come from Bai Xiaochun's mouth, and moreover, he said them so naturally. Zhou Xinqi, thank you for reminding me. This is a matter of fate. I offer these words to you. If you can comprehend them, it is also a matter of fate. Bai Xiaochun flicked his sleeve, displaying a transcendent demeanor, and smiled as he walked away. Although his figure had disappeared, his voice, carrying a hint of melancholy and ethereal melancholy, echoed calmly. It's not that there is something written or that there is, nor is there nothing written or that there is nothing. And this is there nothing or existence? Zhou Xinqi gazed in astonishment at Bai Xiaochun's retreating back. At this moment, Bai Xiaochun's image in her heart changed once again. Unseen by anyone, on the distant riverbank, a monkey stood there. Behind it, an old man, the first ancestor of the Lingxi sect. This brat, he doesn't even know the meaning himself, yet he dares to use it recklessly? The first-generation ancestor chuckled. The monkey's gaze was different from his. Deep within its pupils, there was a profound depth that outsiders could never understand. Leaving the Tongshan River, Bai Xiaochun was exhilarated and delighted. He made sure to remember that saying. He felt it was very practical. Hehe, if I ever see someone I don't like, I'll use it to scare them. It'll definitely shock them. Bai Xiaochun returned to the 100 Beasts courtyard, pondering how to refine the reverse river pill. He hesitated for a moment, then finally gritted his teeth and began refining. To refine the reverse river pill, he had to use himself as a furnace. On the second day of refining, Bai Xiaochun let out a terrible scream, the rumbling sounds never ceasing. He ran out of the room at lightning speed, the rumbling still echoing behind him. Why is it like this? Bai Xiaochun kept exhaling gas from his body. Tai Dan, frightened, rushed out, and the entire 100 Beasts courtyard quickly became filled with a foul stench. Bai Xiaochun was on the verge of tears. The smell only gradually dissipated after 3 days, and he didn't dare try making medicine again. This thing isn't for human use, it's terrifying. I can have my furnace explode while making medicine, but making this reverse river pill, using my own body as the furnace, if it explodes, thinking about this, Bai Xiaochun felt even more terrified. He worried that if he continued making it, his life would be in danger, so he decided not to try anymore. Absolutely not. The more Bai Xiaochun thought about it, the more frightened he became, and he began to understand how others felt when he was making medicine. Outside the 100 Beasts courtyard, several streaks of rainbow light rushed in, and Zhang Dapeng, He Senpeng, and Su Baocai appeared. As soon as they entered the 100 Beasts courtyard, they smelled a lingering foul odor. What's that smell? Zhang Dapeng was stunned. This is... Su Baocai stammered, vaguely guessing, feeling unbelievable. He Senpeng had transformed into a graceful woman. Though her skin was still a little dark, her posture was dignified, and he couldn't help but frown. Bai Zikun was embarrassed and quickly cleared his throat. That Tai Dan has been eating spoiled food these past few days, and his stomach isn't well. Tai Dan, from a distance, heard this and was about to call out to correct him, but was glared at by Bai Zikun and sadly lowered his head, looking at everyone. Seeing that Zhang Dapan and the others still looked suspicious, Bai Zikun quickly changed the subject. Let's not talk about this anymore. Why are you all here? We came here to say goodbye to you. Tomorrow the third group will be teleported, and the 3 of us will all go with them. Zhang Dapan replied. Bai Zikun was startled. During his time at the Bloodstream sect, Zhang Daopan and the other two had rapidly advanced in cultivation and had all become inner disciples. Although none of them had reached the foundation establishment stage, they were all at the great perfection of the Cha condensation stage. While their impact on the battlefield might not be significant, if many gathered together, with the support of formations, they could create astonishing power. Bai Xiaojun remained silent, unsure of what to say, feeling a little pressured. In this battle, we might not necessarily lose. Moreover, if we must fight, then on the battlefield, everyone can kill each other. He Sanpan said calmly, and Zhang Dapan and Su Baokai both nodded. Bai Xiaojun looked at the three of them. He remembered the scene in the fallen sword abyss, where his fellow disciples had died. He couldn't imagine what he would be like if Zhang Dapan and the others died in battle. He didn't want anyone to die. He didn't want war. He wanted everyone to live happily. Zikun, don't make that face. We're not going to die. We haven't drunk in a long time. We have to get drunk this time. Zhang Daopan laughed, taking out several gourds of wine from his storage bag and sharing them with everyone. The four of them sat down and drank. As time passed, they gradually talked more and more. Zhang Daopan laughed, recalling the things Bai Zikun had done since entering the sect, even mentioning the spirit-tailed chicken. Don't talk about it anymore. The taste of spirit-tailed chicken. I really miss it. It's all your fault. He Senpan was embarrassed. She had also participated in the crazy chicken stealing incident back then and had been severely reprimanded by her master. Su Baotsai pounded his chest, dragging Bai Zikun into recounting the blood oath from that year. The four of them drank and talked more, and someone suggested stealing chickens again. So the four of them hastily ran down to the south bank, caught several spirit-tailed chickens, and roasted them with laughter. Towards evening, at Zhang Daban's suggestion, the four of them went to the fire stove room. Everyone in the fire stove room was excited, especially the chubby ones from years ago. They all excitedly prepared a lot of food and ate together. After a while of boisterous activity, even Ho Xiaomei came, pulled Bai Xiaojun to sit beside him. Her small face flushed, becoming even more flushed after drinking. Then Chen Fei also arrived uninvited, joining the group. That night, Bai Xiaojun got drunk. Third pan, this guy, back then I thought you were a man, but it turns out you're a woman, me. Ai Xiaojun, his eyes hazy with drunkenness, pointed at He Sanpan and shouted. He Sanpan glared at Bai Xiaojun, snorted, and continued drinking. Fatty, the pockmark's senior sister who brought me here back then, you even said that GQ was calling something. You were so infatuated with her, remember? Go on, go confess to me, Su Baotsai. That blood letter of yours from back then, it scared Uncle Bai to death. Chen Fei, your nephew dared to ambush me. HMPH, Bai Zikun, every time we divide the food, you're always the one who eats the most. That's right, the thick-cottomed bowl has now become a tradition of our fire stove room. Haha, I still remember the time we went to block the door. Uncle Bai, I was wrong. Zhang Daopan excitedly took out the bowl and shouted. Better to starve to death in the fire stove room than to go to the outer sect to compete. Bai Zikun yelled, adding to the commotion. He Sanpan was also excited, and the chubby senior brothers around him raised their heads and roared. Although Su Baotsai wasn't from the fire stove room, he shouted just as loudly. Chen Fei sighed, ignoring everything, and roared with all his might until his voice was hoarse. Everyone gathered to sing. The spirit porridge is eaten from the corner. The main course can't be touched. Cut the meat thinly, scrape off the bones, and leave 3 parts. Mix the spirit porridge with plenty of water and half a cup of the nectar. Bai Zikun held the wine gourd, drinking and singing at the same time. No, that's not right. Now there are 2 more mantras. The bottom of the cup is a fraction higher. The spirit chicken is for Zikun. Zhang Daopan laughed heartily, patted Bai Zikun on the shoulder, and staggered drunkenly to the side. This kind of unrestrained behavior was never normal, but today, with the battlefield approaching, no one dared say they would definitely not die, so everyone threw everything aside that night. Drinking freely and shouting incessantly, many people heard the commotion and rushed over, and the fire stove room was spewing nonsense and getting completely drunk. The maidservant who always followed Bai Zikun was also drunk to the point of forgetting everything. By the third watch, the fire stove room was quiet, and Bai Zikun opened his eyes and looked around. He held a wine gourd, took a large gulp, looked around, memorizing each person's face, his hand gripping the gourd tightly, wanting to engrave this moment in his memory. Then his legs gave way, and he fell asleep beside them. He woke up from his deep sleep, his hand bulging with veins from gripping the gourds so tightly. Early the next morning, Yangwei Peak and Ziding Mountain shone brightly in the sky, and figures rushed out, flying towards those two mountains. Zhang Da Pan, Hasten Pan, Su Baozi, and Chen Fia were all among them, and with the list of inheritances and ancestors, the third group of nearly 30,000 people teleported away. Bai Xiaochun lay in the fire stove room, his eyes wide open, watching Zhang Daopan and his group disappear, his eyes filled with stubbornness. Xiaochun, brother, I'm in the fourth group, Ho Xiaomei whispered beside him. Bai Xiaochun held her hand tightly, his voice deep and resolute. Leave everything to me. With the third group of disciples gone, half of the Lingxi sect was empty. A few days later, Luo Rifeng, Kundin Feng, and Huang Vin Sun, the last three mountains, also emitted pillars of light shooting up into the sky. The sect's formation had been fully activated. Ancestor Taimu appeared, and the remaining inheritors, including the Supreme Elder and Jiang Yuan Dong, were also present. Li Qingho and Su Mei Xiang were among them. Almost all the elders, inner disciples, and outer disciples showed up, most of them having their names listed in the fourth teleportation group. The final fifth group consisted of the most talented individuals, and this fourth teleportation was the largest, with over 50,000 people. Bai Zikun looked at the pillar of light, took a deep breath, and walked out of the 100 Beasts courtyard. Tai Den followed behind, unusually agile, as if also aware of the impending battle. Bai Zikun flew toward the pillar of light. The place was already crowded with people, and many instinctively moved closer to him upon seeing Bai Zikun. Although Bai Zikun was a troublemaker, the events at the Fallen Sword Abyss had proven. The more dangerous the situation, the more trustworthy Bai Zikun became. In this battle, the Lingxi sect chose the battlefield within the Luochen mountain range, relying on formations for decisive combat. The mountain range between the Luochen mountain range and the Lingxi sect had 7 or 8 layers of defensive lines. If the Luochen mountain range were to fall, they could retreat and continue fighting using those lines. This battle was not about schemes or tricks, only straightforward, life or death combat, to make the Bloodstream sect realize the difficulty and make them retreat. To let the Bloodstream sect know that capturing the Lingxi sect was no easy feat. Everyone quickly arrived, and soon after, teleportation began. A dazzling light, like a giant hand lifting all the lives on the 3 mountains, transported them to the point of contact with the Bloodstream sect, the Luochen mountain range. The border between the Lingxi sect and the Zwexi sect is incredibly long, its end invisible to the naked eye, towering like a city wall. Within it lies a formation, now activated. The previously invisible light screen is clearly visible, connecting heaven and earth, its vast scope shocking anyone who sees it. Occasionally, this light screen vibrates and twists, accompanied by rumbling sounds of destruction. This is the Luochen Grand Formation, meticulously arranged by the Lingxi sect for 10,000 years. In the sky, figures of Foundation establishment cultivators radiate their divine consciousness, sweeping in all directions, especially towards the Zwexi sect. On the ground, the first 3 groups of disciples have established temporary bases, with the outer disciples being the most numerous, gathered together, practicing the formation. The outer disciples were practicing several dozen formations, and when the 4th group arrived, the number would increase. The inner disciples gathered in one place, practicing formations according to the mountain's contours. Their formations were far more powerful than those of the outer disciples, the vibrations they emitted causing the surrounding void to warp. Not only that, rows of war chariots, densely packed across the Luochen mountain range, were made of iron, each with a 10-zhang long, 3-foot wide needle. Each chariot was inlaid with numerous spirit stones, not low-grade, but high-grade ones, and each chariot was controlled by several people. There were hundreds of war chariots, a terrifyingly dense sight. Further away, many giant boulders, controlled by the elders using their spiritual power, were slowly gathering together to form a giant boulder hundreds of zhang high. Over 100 colossal stone golems had been created, scattered throughout the Luochen mountain range. Numerous war beasts roamed the sky and the ground, sometimes roaring, sometimes circling. In the distance, outside the Luochen mountain range, many scouts had been dispatched to the Bloodstream sect to gather information. The sect spies had also begun their operations, though not very effective, but better late than never. Enormous shields were haphazardly placed against the Rocky Mountains. If arranged properly, they would certainly be strong enough to withstand a devastating attack. Everyone was busy. A vast area within the Luochen mountain range, large enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people, had been cleared. A massive formation was carved into the ground, surrounded by over 1,000 guards. The formation began to emit dazzling light and deafening explosions. The ground trembled, and all the disciples of the Lingxi sect in the Luochen mountain range turned to look. They saw 3 enormous beams of light shooting down from the sky, piercing straight into the formation. The light screen connecting heaven and earth also shook. The 3 beams of light disappeared, and tens of thousands of people appeared within the formation. Bai Xiaochun was among them. He was one of the first group to be teleported. Having just appeared, many of the newly teleported people were still unfamiliar with the effects and experienced side effects. Bai Xiaochun's face turned pale, but he wasn't seriously injured. He looked around, found Hou Xiaomei and her group, and quickly walked towards them. With his status, no one stopped him as he passed through the crowd. He quickly reached Hou Xiaomei's side. Her face was pale, and she was staggering, almost falling. Zhou Xinqi supported her, and Bai Xiaochun stepped forward to help, transferring spiritual power into her to support her. It's all right, everyone gets like this during teleportation. Bai Xiaochun looked at Hou Xiaomei's pale face, feeling a pang of heartache. During his time at the Bloodstream sect, he had come to understand more about matters of the heart. Zhou Xinqi glanced at Bai Xiaochun, stepping back a few paces, unwilling to help. Shangguan Tianyu was also there, coldly staring at Bai Xiaochun, inwardly scoffing. After a while, Hou Xiaomei returned to normal, looking at Bai Xiaochun with unease. In her heart, Bai Xiaochun had already surpassed her by a great margin. If she relaxed even slightly, the gap would become unattainable. She tightly grasped Bai Xiaochun's hand. Seeing Hou Xiaomei had recovered, Bai Xiaochun looked around. This place had changed so much since he returned. Back then, the formation hadn't been activated, so he couldn't see anything. Now it had completely transformed. He looked at the powerful figures in the sky, at the bright light, at his fellow disciples practicing formations, at the chariots, the huge puppets, the shields, the familiar faces. But this place was too vast. He hadn't found Zhang Daopan and his group yet. The 4th group began to be led out of the formation, dispersing in all directions. Arranging places for several thousand people would take time, and quite a few people were still standing here waiting, all moved by the surrounding scene just like Bai Zikun. Clearly, everything wasn't ready yet. Bai Zikun couldn't imagine how magnificent the scene would be when everything was prepared. It turned out that the Lingxi sect also had many secrets. For example, the formations the outer disciples were practicing, Bai Zikun realized they were all related to the Purple Che Imperial Cauldron technique and the Heaven-Connecting Imperial Elephant technique. It could be said that as long as one cultivated these 2 techniques, they could freely participate in the formations. Bai Xiaochun felt that those formations still contained many variations. The formations of the inner disciples were also like that. This was truly a sect war. Only a sect war could make the spirit and indomitable will of the Lingxi sect explode like this, even though they might lose to the Bloodstream sect. They still didn't hesitate to choose a bloody battle. This Luochen mountain range is truly ingenious, helping to greatly enhance the Lingxi sect's combat power. Bai Xiaochun opened his heaven-penetrating Dharma eye, and with just a glance, his pupils involuntarily contracted. Within the Luochen mountain range, there was another formation whose effect made Bai Xiaochun's scalp tingle. It was Ice Blast. This was an open scheme, telling the Bloodstream sect that if they fought to the death, even if they ultimately won, the Luochen mountain range alone would inflict excruciating pain on them. A pain they would never forget. Beside him, the young maid trembled, clearly shaken by the surrounding scene. She looked towards the Bloodstream sect, from where she could see only a crimson sky and earth. Brother Xiaochun, I heard that the people in the Bloodstream sect are all like Zhangfeng's Wezi Yizhang, ruthless and vicious, killing people like flies. They even kill each other within the sect. A slight mistake, and you're dead. You must be careful when fighting them, the young maid whispered. To her, the Bloodstream sect was synonymous with death, especially the widespread rumors about Yizhang, so she naturally used him as an example. Bai Xiaochun sighed, patting his chest. Little sister, rest assured, wherever I, Bai Xiaochun, am, Yi Zhang wouldn't dare show up. Bai Xiaochun tilted his chin. He wasn't boasting. This was the truth. He was absolutely confident. Hearing this, the young maid smiled. Regardless of whether she believed it or not, since Bai Xiaochun had said it, she naturally put on a completely trusting expression, her eyes filled with adoration, which made Bai Xiaochun feel very comfortable. Bai Xiaochun looked around gleefully, saw Zhou Xinqi, and said, "Nephew Xinqi, don't be afraid, I will protect you too. You've already come here, and you still have the nerve to brag. What's the point?" Zhou Xinqi couldn't reconcile this Bai Xiaochun with the Bai Xiaochun she had seen on the banks of the Tongshan River, and sighed softly. "Bai Xiaochun, night burial is mine. I will definitely behead him." Shangguan Tianyu snorted coldly, staring intently at Bai Xiaochun, spitting out each word. Bai Xiaochun lost his temper, glared at Shangguan Tianyu, and was about to speak when he was startled. A chilling sensation made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He spun around and saw a girl not far away looking at him. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, her face was exquisitely beautiful. She was Gongsun Wanner. Seeing Bai Xiaochun looking at her, Gongsun Wanner covered her mouth and giggled. Her laughter sent shivers down Bai Xiaochun's spine, and a strong sense of danger arose in his heart. This girl was extremely dangerous. Bai Xiaochun's eyes narrowed. This was the first time he had seen Gongsun Wanner since returning to Lingxi sect, and this Gongsun Wanner was completely different from the one he knew. The previous Gongsun Wanner, though also beautiful, lacked that seductive charm. This girl, however, had a seductive appearance, but in reality, she concealed it all within, making anyone who saw her wary. Despite their identical appearances, he felt a strong sense of danger emanating from her. Her cultivation level was elusive, making Bai Xiaochun extremely cautious, and his blood surged. Something's not right. While Bai Xiaochun was still stunned, Gongsun Wanner covered her mouth and chuckled, turning and walking away, disappearing into the crowd in an instant. She disappeared, and only then did his racing heart subside, but Bai Xiaochun was certain of his earlier feeling. How could Gongsun Wanner have changed so much? Bai Xiaochun took a deep breath, carefully recalling her eyes, especially her clear, ringing laughter. There was something indescribably familiar about it. Because he had known Gongsun Wanner before, he couldn't pinpoint if that familiar feeling was anything unusual. Ho Xiaomei noticed his unusual behavior and followed his gaze, but didn't see Gongsun Wanner. "Brother Xiaochun, what's wrong?" Ho Xiaomei asked. Bai Xiaochun shook his head without answering, continuing to ponder. The newly arrived cultivators were gradually led away, and finally it was Shangguan Tianyu's turn. "Senior Uncle Shangguan, according to the sect's regulations, you are one of the 3 great foundation establishment cultivators of Qingfang Mountain. So you are the one presiding over the 3rd Qingfang formation. Please follow me and familiarize yourself with the formation." A northern inner disciple bowed and said to Shangguan Tianyu. Those who had been teleported so far were merely participants in the formation, but Shangguan Tianyu had become the one presiding over it. This difference naturally attracted much attention and discussion. As expected of Senior Uncle Shangguan, the sect's hope presiding over the 3rd Qingfang formation. Uncle Shangguan, since returning from the Sword Abyss, has been in seclusion for many days. I heard he only came out once to challenge Ghost Fang, but unfortunately, I don't know the outcome. Bai Xiaochun sneered, feeling displeased. Shangguan Tianyu calmly walked out, accustomed to the stares of thousands, and casually asked the inner disciple from the North Bank, "Do you know who presided over the 1st and 2nd matches?" Reporting to Uncle Shangguan, I heard that the 2nd match was presided over by an elder from Qingfang Mountain, and the 1st match was presided over by the head of Qingfang Mountain, the disciple respectfully replied. Shangguan Tianyu nodded slightly, glanced at Bai Xiaochun, and snorted. Another person came forward and respectfully greeted Zhou Xinqi. "Uncle Zhou, I am the guide. You are the presiding officer for the 3rd match of Xianyun Mountain." Zhou Xinqi silently nodded, walked out, and followed Shangguan Tianyu. Bai Xiaochun glanced around. He didn't mind Zhou Xinqi, but he found Shangguan Tianyu utterly displeasing. This guy, unexpectedly he's also the presiding officer. It seems that each mountain, besides the inner and outer sect formations, also has 3 foundation establishment formations. So what about me? Which one should I go for? A disciple from the southern inner sect flew over from afar. As soon as he got close, he immediately shouted, "Is Senior Uncle Bai there?" He yelled so loudly, his forehead dripping with sweat, that everyone around heard him. Shangguan Tianyu and Chu Xinqi also stopped and looked over. Bai Xiaochun's eyes lit up. He stepped out and raved. Seeing Bai Xiaochun, the disciple hurried over, bowing deeply from a distance, his eyes filled with reverence and fanaticism. "Greetings, Senior Uncle Bai. The sect master has ordered that Senior Uncle Bai will not participate in the formations of the 7 mountains on the north and south banks, but will instead preside over the foundation establishment formation of the Dao Seed Mountain." Hearing this, everyone around gasped and looked at Bai Xiaochun. Presiding over the foundation establishment formation of the Seed Dao Mountain? Of course, Senior Uncle Bai, a heavenly Dao Foundation establishment cultivator. If he were to enter any other mountain, it would be a sign of not appreciating talent. Only Seed Dao Mountain is suitable for Senior Uncle Bai. Those eyes were filled with respect and admiration. Clearly, Bai Xiaochun was an important person, even more important than Shangguan Tianyu and Zhou Xinqi in the eyes of the sect. Zhou Xinqi looked at Bai Xiaochun, then followed the disciple leading the way and left. Shangguan Tianyu's face remained unchanged, but his right hand clenched tightly. The feeling of being surpassed again made him grit his teeth, and he forcefully flicked his sleeve, flying ahead of the disciple leading the way. Bai Xiaochun was incredibly cheerful. Before leaving, he even used his status to arrange for Hou Xiaomei, ensuring that although she would naturally be transferred to the outer disciple area, she would be protected by everyone. Bai Xiaochun flew to the central area, where 9 massive formations stood, each thousands of feet in size, emitting astonishing vibrations and radiance, seemingly in sync with the grand formation of the Luochen mountain range. Hundreds of disciples were busy around the 9 formations, sometimes adjusting and sometimes modifying them, causing the aura of the 9 formations to constantly intensify. Inside the formations, many people sat cross-legged, scattered throughout the 9 formations, each person's seat fixed and not to be changed. Looking closely, the seating arrangement in the formations was in the shape of a bagua 8 trigrams, with 8 people on the outside and 3 main positions in the center, representing the inner 3 talents and outer bagua. Bai Xiaochun recognized most of the cultivators sitting in the formations. They were all foundation establishment elders of the Lingxi sect. Several of them also saw Bai Xiaochun and nodded in greeting. Bai Xiaochun's formation was the 9th formation, different from the other 8. This formation had only one main position. The sect master has decreed that the 9th formation of the Dao Seed Mountain will be presided over by only Uncle Bai. The leading disciple bowed respectfully and left. Bai Xiaochun observed for a while before entering the formation and sitting down cross-legged. He closed his eyes, released his cultivation, and sensed the formation. This formation and the purple Che through heaven technique had a very strong mutual resonance, making Bai Xiaochun feel as if he and the formation were one. Bai Xiaochun vaguely felt as if he wanted to transform into a giant. With just a thought, he could become a giant. This feeling was extremely intense, making Bai Xiaochun unable to restrain himself, so a brilliant light, accompanied by a loud explosion, erupted from his 9th formation. The foundation establishment elders in the 8 surrounding formations all turned to look. And not only that, almost every cultivator was startled and turned to look. From Bai Xiaochun's 9th formation, within the halo of light, a giant 200 feet tall appeared. Although only its shape was visible, it was still clear that the giant's face was Bai Xiaochun's. Zhang Da Pan, Haisen Pan, Su Baocai, and Haoyuan Fei were all shocked upon seeing the giant. Guya, sitting in the 3rd formation of Guya Peak, opened his eyes wide, staring at the giant with a glint of light. Bei Han Lai, Xu Song, even Shangguan Tieyu and Zhou Dinxie, who had just sat down, also looked up. Gongsun Wanner's eyes flickered. Bai Xiaochun was slightly bewildered. He felt that his thoughts were the giant's thoughts, his actions were the giant's actions, as if the giant was an external manifestation of himself. Overwhelmed by an unprecedented intensity, he couldn't hold back and let out a long, thunderous roar that echoed throughout the space. Bai Xiaochun tried waving his arms, but perhaps unfamiliar with the technique, the giant's body swayed and gradually faded away, causing concern among those watching. The Supreme Elder and the list of inheritors in the air also watched intently. He is Bai Xiaochun. On his first attempt at mastering the formation, he activated its power and condensed an external avatar. This by Xiaochun, his cultivation method and the formation of our Lingxi sect are surprisingly compatible. No wonder the sect master entrusted him alone to lead the ninth formation. It normally requires 3 cultivators to condense an avatar, but he accomplished it alone. Afterwards, the giant that Bai Xiaochun had transformed into also dissipated, and cries of astonishment echoed throughout the Luochen mountain range. That's Senior Uncle Bai, oh my god, Senior Uncle Bai is new here, right? He's already activated the formation. Some were moved, some were enthusiastic, and of course, some were unwilling. Some were envious. Shangguan Tianyu clenched his hands tightly as if he didn't feel any pain. He gritted his teeth, took a deep breath, and released his cultivation to familiarize himself with the formation. He wasn't alone. Guiya, Bei Hanli, Susong, and Gongsun Yan all did the same. They all wanted to compete with Bai Xiaochun, so after only a few days, giants were constantly being condensed. The 4th group, numbering tens of thousands, had already dispersed in all directions, joining various levels of formations. The remaining 8 formations of the Dao Mountain also had enough people, and the 8 people assisting Bai Xiaochun's 9th formation had also arrived. Bai Xiaochun was familiar with these 8 people. They were all those who had received favors from him in the fallen sword abyss. After learning they would be staying in the formation with Bai Xiaochun, the 8 were extremely excited. After a period of getting acquainted, their control of the giants became proficient, and the entire Luochen mountain range exuded an astonishingly powerful aura. The giants, once formed, would sometimes roar, sometimes flail their arms and legs, and unleash spells, causing the heavens and earth to change color. The giants formed by the outer disciples formations could unleash the combat power of the great perfection of the Che condensation stage. The inner disciples formations could unleash the combat power of the foundation establishment stage, while the formations of prodigies like Shangguan Tianyu could unleash the combat power of the great perfection of the foundation establishment stage. The 1st and 2nd formations of the mountains unleashed an aura comparable to the golden core stage. The 3 mountains on the south bank and the 4 mountains on the north bank were all like this. From a distance, these giants were at least 50 zhang tall. Initially, their bodies were somewhat blurry, revealing the cultivators seated within, but later they became clearer, concealing the cultivators' forms. Eventually, almost no cultivators were visible, only numerous giants within the Luochen mountain range. The avatars of the 9 key formations of the Dao Seed Mountain were far more powerful than those of the other mountains. Because these giant avatars were all concentrated power of foundation establishment cultivators, their combat power was not merely comparable to that of a golden core cultivator, but capable of engaging in fierce combat with them. The giants of Bai Xiaochun's 9th formation were enormous whenever they appeared, radiating the aura of the heavenly Dao, accompanied by surging thunder and arcs of lightning striking everywhere. Occasionally, Bai Xiaochun's giants would fly into the sky, with Bai Xiaochun sitting directly on the giant stanchion, and the other 8 figures scattered around him. With a single punch, a deafening explosion shook the heavens. As he chanted the incantation, the power emanating from him and the other 8 transformed into a massive cauldron of death energy radiating immense combat power, clearly capable of rivaling even a core formation cultivator. 3 days passed. At noon, the sky suddenly churned, and a colossal column of light appeared. Everyone looked up. The dazzling column of light quickly contracted, transforming into a white sun. Around the white sun, the void twisted, as if unable to withstand it. Inside the white sun, a black crow stood. Though its eyes were closed, its aura was incredibly powerful and indescribable. Behind the crow, a mountain gradually appeared. It was the 9th mountain of the Lingxi sect. The oppressive force pressed down, causing the entire Luochen mountain range to tremble. Several people on the inheritance list flew out, as did the supreme elders. A short old man, yet possessing an aura of immeasurable height, emerged. It was the 1st patriarch of the Lingxi sect. Greetings, patriarch. Greetings, patriarch. A chorus of greetings erupted, all the cultivators of the Lingxi sect inside and outside the Luochen mountain range bowing in reverence. 4 figures flew up from below. They were the 4 patriarchs who had led the 4 teleportation groups earlier. The bloodstream sect the entire sect has mobilized and will arrive very soon. He patriarch swept his gaze around, his voice resounding, audible to every cultivator. War inevitably involves death, even I, an old man, may perish. But no matter what, those who die in this battle will be the heroic spirits of our Linksy sect that we will never forget. This battle concerns the very survival of our Linksy sect. This battle will decide the 1,000-year peace of our Linksy sect. This battle will let the entire cultivation world know that our Linksy sect will die with our heads held high, never in shame. Finally, set up the formation. Let the Bloodstream sect see the might and determination of our Spirit Stream sect. The words of the ancestor echoed in everyone's ears, their blood boiling as they roared, "Fight!" All the arrangements of the Luochen mountain range, after the ancestors' words, were completely unleashed. Boom! 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 In the sky, the 9th mountain stood tall, as if supporting the heavens. With it as the center, 9 enormous runes surrounded it, each thousands of feet in size, constantly rotating, leading to countless interwoven lightning bolts that illuminated the sky and earth. These then transformed into even more runes the size of fists, appearing and disappearing, spreading in all directions, as if to replace the sky of the Luochen mountain range. Amidst the flashes of lightning and runes were hundreds of figures with astonishing auras, their hair all snow-white, the supreme elders of the Linksy sect. Below the supreme elders were 17 individuals on the lineage, including Li Qing'o. These 17 radiated brilliant light, like 7 stars. Just below the 9th mountain were the 5 patriarchs and their dharma forms, each one immense and towering, as if trying to support the heavens. Among them, the dharma form of the first patriarch was the most striking, possessing 3 heads and 6 arms, its size comparable to the heavens and earth, far more magnificent than the other 4 patriarchs. Throughout the land, all the formations had been activated, and on the screen separating the Luochen mountain range, countless flashes of lightning appeared, winding along the screen, making it resemble a wall of lightning. On the wall of lightning, 9 faces, each hundreds of meters tall and with their eyes closed, rose up. These faces were extremely majestic. Looking closely, the 9th face was Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun felt that his 9th formation and the Luochen mountain range had merged together. Seeing his own face, he trembled, but wasn't overly startled. All the war chariots were arranged in long rows, their black needles ready to fire at any moment. The gigantic stone golems were also ready. With a single command, they would immediately leap down from the mountain range and join the battlefield. Countless war beasts, large and small, roared incessantly, crowding the mountain, led by the 4 guardian beasts. Enormous shields were arranged to protect the sect's disciples within the formation. These disciples were all concentrating their minds on the formation as giant figures slowly emerged. Giants of the inner disciples formations, outer disciples formations, and genius formations from both the north and south banks. There were countless giants and colossal beasts. The 9 great formations at the core, formed by Foundation Establishment cultivators, were already ready, surrounded by hundreds of Foundation Establishment cultivators, ready to charge into battle or jump in to replenish the formations if needed. Below the 9th mountain, in midair, 2 extremely powerful beams of light suddenly appeared. Inside these 2 beams of light were 2 magical treasures. The first was an ancient, weathered purple cauldron, its appearance shaking the very heavens. The second was a sword with silver-white spikes, a sword that had been refined 10 times. The Heavenly Horn Sword. The 10 luminous patterns on the sword's body startled everyone who saw them, shaking their minds. One could imagine that this sword, once unleashed, would surely cleave through the void. A roar echoed from the distant void. A gigantic, pitch-black dragon emerged from the emptiness, its enormous head protruding, its black scales standing on end, its eyes blazing with ferocious red. The Heavenly Horned Black Dragon. The White Sun, the Inheritance List, the 9th Mountain, the Giant Formation, the Giant Dragon, these were all things the disciples of the Linksy sect had never seen or heard of. This was internal power. The internal power of a sect. On the 9th Mountain, inside the White Sun, the Black Crow suddenly let out a cry. Oe! Like a baby whimpering, an invisible shockwave from the Luochen mountain range flew straight towards the Bloodstream sect. The shockwave was arc-shaped, like a wave of air sweeping across everything, then violently striking an invisible barrier. A powerful explosion and a grinding sound echoed through the heavens and earth, the void thousands of meters away shattering like a mirror. A dense cloud of blood surged wildly from the point of impact, swirling across the sky and rushing forward. Within the blood cloud appeared numerous ferocious faces, both male and female, flying towards the Lynxy sect. The swirling red cloud spread, as if wanting to turn the entire sky blood red. Blood raindrops fell from the blood cloud, transforming the ground into a sea of blood. Countless blood-colored warships, propelled by the wind and waves, roared and surged forward. In that sea of blood, there were also many corpse demons and demon lords, riding the blood waves, their roars filling the air. The Bloodzy sect has arrived. Bai Xiaochun gazed intently. In the sea of blood, besides the warships, he also saw many blood-colored chariots. And like the chariots of the Lynxy sect, the Bloodzy sect's chariots were made of skeletons, looking terrifying and bizarre. On the chariots were the outer disciples of the Bloodstream sect, each filled with murderous intent, their faces filled with madness, staring intently at the disciples of the Spirit Stream sect. Their gazes were bloodthirsty and cruel, causing the Spirit Stream sect disciples to tremble. Within the sea of blood were numerous blood giants, hairless figures whose bodies were formed from blood. Surrounding these blood giants were countless disciples. A vast army, overwhelming and majestic, their momentum like a rainbow. Above lay the blood cloud, below the blood sea, and in the middle was an impenetrable, pitch-black void, constantly shifting and expanding boundlessly. Only when the blood cloud struck down with lightning, bombarding the blood sea beneath, could one see dozens of ancient, weathered giants within that black void, clad in battle armor, their faces expressionless. Each giant had a cold-faced cultivator, all at the core formation stage, perched on its head. The blood energy emanating from them was stronger than that of ordinary core formation cultivators. Bai Xiaochun realized they were even stronger than blood suns, and the aura of blood suns permeated the bodies of those more than 10 cultivators. Bai Xiaochun's eyes narrowed. He remembered that in the Bloodstream sect, there was a type of existence above the Supreme Elders, second only to the ancestors, and that was blood souls. Blood suns who had reached core formation were blood souls. These more than 10 blood souls were in the Black Void, flanked by over 100 Supreme Elders, all deploying their divine abilities and flying. Further outside were over 1,000 Foundation Establishment cultivators. Leading the way were 4 factions. The first faction was formed by the convergence of many demons, creating a gigantic green head with Blood Son of Wuming Peak seated on top, and the Great Elder of Wuming Peak behind him. The second faction was a massive coffin, surrounded by writhing corpses, with Blood Son of Corpse Peak and the Great Elder sitting coldly on top of the coffin. The third faction was a hand formed from countless pieces of flesh and blood. Within its palm lay Xiao Zifeng, Blood Son, and Xiao Zifeng's Grand Elder. The final faction was an enormous blood sword, its entire blade overflowing with blood-red light. Wherever it passed, the void was torn apart, emitting a sharp, ripping sound. Alone, clad in battle robes, sat Song Junwan. Her expression was grim, yet even more cold and aloof, clearly indicating that the disappearance of Yi Zhang had rendered Zhongfeng's strength incomparable to the other 3 peaks, and its momentum significantly weaker. On the ground, amidst a sea of blood, the outer and inner disciples of the Bloodstream sect crowded together, swarming towards Luochen mountain range. There were no roars, only an overwhelming aura of killing intent filling the air. In midair, the Foundation Establishment Elders, while flying, would occasionally flick their sleeves. Each flick would unleash a whirlwind, engulfing hundreds of outer and inner disciples in a sea of blood. These disciples showed no fear, coordinating with each other according to a special formation, forming a red ball of flesh that was hurled far away. Upon landing, it would rumble, creating a deep crater, and then transform back into hundreds of disciples, continuing their charge forward. The force of these flesh balls crashing to the ground startled many onlookers, yet the disciples didn't flinch, fiercely charging forward like swarms of locusts, unstoppable. This was a tactic of the Bloodstream sect. Bai Xiaochun watched, his scalp tingling. As the Blood Son of the Central Peak, he knew quite a bit about the Bloodstream sect, but today he couldn't help but realize many secrets of the Bloodstream sect that even he didn't know. Seeing Song Junwan all alone, his heart was filled with mixed emotions, and he felt increasingly worried. The Bloodstream sect's aura was clearly stronger than the Spirit Stream sect's, but that was only the surface. The Bloodstream sect's inner strength and its ancestors were all hidden within the blood cloud in the sky. Many faces were concealed within the blood cloud, but the most ferocious were 8 figures, powerful and striking enough to be ignored. These 8 figures formed 8 massive vortices, radiating a terrifying and ferocious aura. Within one vortex stood a gigantic green demon head, topped by an old man whose eyes flashed like lightning, radiating an overwhelming presence. In the second vortex was an undying bone, the terrifying corpse refining technique that had awakened that day, with the bloodstream sex Hanyan ancestor perched on its shoulder. In the third vortex was Wujizi, surrounded by 10,000 blood swords, capable of splitting the sky and slicing the moon. The Song family's patriarch stood within the fourth vortex, his feet resting on a blood-red banner. The banner was adorned with shimmering golden runes, each flash emitting blood-red lightning bolts that struck the blood clouds and blood sea. Within the fifth vortex was a patriarch transformed into a blood giant, his right hand identical to that of the bloodstream sect. This man was the bloodstream sect's strongest patriarch, the ancestor. The bloodstream sect had 8 patriarchs, while the spirit stream sect only had 5. But the bloodstream sect's terror didn't stop there. Beside the ancestor stood a massive, blood-red tree, emanating an aura of ancient desolation, one of the bloodstream sect's most prized treasures. A blood-red mirror, hundreds of meters in size, reflected countless figures seemingly ready to leap out, silently wailing. The third prized treasure consisted of 2 blood-red iron stones, forming a chain. In terms of the number of prized treasures, the bloodstream sect surpassed the spirit stream sect. But the most powerful thing, perched atop the blood cloud, was a scarecrow. This scarecrow had an ordinary appearance, holding a piece of human skin in its left hand and a scale in its right, its face always bearing an evil grin. Blood clouds filled the sky, a pitch-black void hung in the air, and a sea of blood surged beneath, all converging to create a terrifying aura. Like a colossal demon pressing down on the Luochen mountain range, the cultivators of the Lingxi sect were shaken, yet this very terror ignited their strongest fighting spirit. Their fighting spirit surged, causing the runes and lightning bolts in the sky above the Luochen mountain range to explode with deafening roars, fiercely resisting the terrifying aura of the Bloodshi sect. Xiaojun saw many familiar faces: Song Qiu, Song Zhenwan, Su Xieshan, Gulai, Shen Xuanzi, the 3 great blood sons, the Song family's ancestor, and Wuji Zhenren. Only Zhu Mei was absent. However, Bai Xiaochun didn't have time to think about Zhu Mei. He was worried as he watched the bloodstream sect charging forward, now less than 5,000 feet from the Luochen mountain range. He observed the murderous aura emanating from each member of the bloodstream sect, saw Song Zhenwan's killing intent, and saw the Song family's ancestors' eyes flashing with determination to fight to the death. On the Lingxi sect side, the formation shone brightly, and the radiance of hundreds of war chariots also became dazzling, ready to attack. Bai Xiaochun saw Zhang Dapan inside a giant. Though he couldn't see clearly, he could vaguely discern that he was grinding his teeth. Lightning flashed incessantly across the sky above the Lingxi sect, the runes shimmering even more brightly. The 17 inheritors on the inheritance list were all brimming with killing intent, and the supreme elders were ready to unleash their divine abilities. The first-generation ancestor had raised his hand high. With just one more wave, war would erupt. The founder of the bloodstream sect had also revealed his ruthlessness, ready to order an attack. The 2 sides were getting closer and closer. 5,000 feet, 3,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 1,000 feet. The tension was immense. Just as the 2 ancestors were about to give the order, in the Luochen mountain range, the 9th formation transformed into a giant. Bai Xiaochun's eyes in his dantian were blazing red with anxiety. He didn't want to see the 2 sects fight. He didn't want anyone to die. His goal since childhood had been immortality. To survive, not only himself, but also everyone he knew would survive. Bai Xiaochun roared, flying out from within the giant. His flight surprised everyone. Bai Xiaochun flew incredibly fast, his wings flapping powerfully, and he had already flown out of the Luochen mountain range. The barrier of the Luochen mountain range only targeted the disciples of the bloodstream sect, not stopping him. By the time everyone saw him, Bai Xiaochun had already rushed out of the Luochen mountain range. The Lingxi sect was shocked and in a state of panic. Zhang Dapan's eyes widened and he shouted, "Xiaochun, what are you doing? Come back!" Ho Xiaomei, inside a giant, also trembled with fear and anxiety. Xiaochun, brother, you, He Senpan and Su Baoxi were startled, their eyes wide, their heads buzzing. Jushinchi, inside a giant, couldn't help but cry out, Bai Xiaochun. Li Qing'o, high in the sky, was startled and furious. Bai Xiaochun, what are you doing? Not only him, but Sect Master Zheng Yuandong also roared. The first-generation ancestor frowned, looking at Bai Xiaochun with confusion. The Ghost Fangs, Bei Hanli, and Su Tong gaped in astonishment. Shangguan Tianyu was startled, his heart filled with joy. This time, Bai Xiaochun was certain to die. Li Qing'o and the other ancestors were about to fly out and drag Bai Xiaochun back. Bai Xiaochun stopped in midair and roared, Don't fight, listen to me. His words echoed everywhere, but no one listened. The Bloodstream Sect army was also stunned by Bai Xiaochun's sudden charge. Some recognized him. Bai Xiaochun. Song Qiu was the first to appear, his eyes blazing with killing intent. He looked up at the sky and laughed loudly, his body instantly leaping forward, charging straight towards Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun, since you want to die, I, Song, will grant your wish. Not only Song Qiu, but many disciples of the Bloodstream Sect also recognized Bai Xiaochun, laughing excitedly and rushing out. Is Bai Xiaochun out of his mind? He's flying out alone again. Whatever, we must kill him. Haha, Bai Xiaochun has come out. He won't be able to come back. From the Bloodstream Sect, people kept flying out quickly. The three Blood Sons were overjoyed. They had discussed how to kill Bai Xiaochun, thinking that since Bai Xiaochun was an important figure in the Spirit Stream Sect, it would be rare for him to be separated from his group. But unexpectedly, he foolishly flew out alone, saying some naive things like don't fight. The three Blood Sons laughed loudly, their figures like lightning flashing. Song Zhengwan was also tempted and flew out as well. The Divine Calculator and Galei also didn't want to be outdone by their brothers. Kill Bai Xiaochun. The distance between them was already short, so in just a moment, the Bloodstream Sect's people were close to Bai Xiaochun. On the blood cloud, the Song family's ancestor smiled. Truly interesting. The Song family's ancestor took a step forward, intending to kill Bai Xiaochun, but just as he stepped out, the Spirit Stream Sect's Ironwood ancestor coldly teleported forward, blocking the Song family's ancestor in midair. Wu Jizi flew out, and the Spirit Stream Sect's Li Ziming snorted coldly, rushing forward to intercept. The first-generation ancestor of the Spirit Stream Sect frowned in anger, flying out to capture Bai Xiaochun, but was instantly blocked by the Bloodstream Sect's ancestor. Without a word, they immediately engaged in battle. In the Luochen mountain range, a giant rushed out, followed by Hou Yongfei and Li Qing'o, who also flew out to rescue Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun, come back! Seeing that no one was listening to his words, and with the patriarchs already fighting and the Bloodstream Sect cultivators approaching, Bai Xiaochun shouted anxiously, step back! A look of madness flashed in his eyes as he yelled at the Bloodstream Sect members. The Bloodstream Sect members burst into laughter. Bai Xiaochun, I thought you were a prodigy, but it turns out you're just a madman. Ha ha ha, telling us to retreat. Who do you think you are? Bai Xiaochun, although you're a Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment cultivator from the Lingxi sect, on this battlefield, you'll quickly become a dead man. The three Blood Sons heard Bai Xiaochun shout and found it hard to believe. Could Bai Xiaochun really be an idiot? Ridiculous, you little rats from the Lingxi sect. What gives you the audacity to order us around? Gulai laughed loudly, his eyes full of mockery. He increased his speed. He didn't aim to kill Bai Xiaochun, but simply to be the first to strike. That would give him something to brag about later, enough to make him arrogant. Bai Xiaochun's face was cold as he stared at the approaching Bloodstream Sect members. He took out the night burial mask and put it on, then raised his head, flicked his sleeve, and spoke indifferently. Only I, Zhangfeng Zuezi, can match this. These 8 words transformed into an overwhelming aura of killing intent, imbued with iron will, madness, and demonic nature, erupting from him and causing the entire space to reverberate. Only I am the blood sun of the central peak. Bai Xiaochun's 8 words echoed in all directions. Although his voice wasn't very loud, the icy tone, coupled with the overwhelming bloodlust emanating from him, gave his words an indescribable pressure. Bai Xiaochun wasn't intentionally gloomy. It was simply that when he put on the night burial mask, he naturally became like that. It was as if, upon returning to the Bloodstream Sect, that coldness and terrifying killing intent were a natural reaction, causing the entire surrounding scene to fall silent. Most importantly, the meaning of these 8 words surpassed everyone's expectations. All the participants on both sides were stunned, their minds reeling, their bodies trembling with shock. If you imagine the Lingxi sect and the Zwexi sect as two enormous mists, Lingxi sect being white mist and Zwexi sect being blood red mist, and the two mists were somewhat intertwined then now. Both mists have stopped, both turning to look at the one Lingxi sect wants to protect, and Zwexi sect wants to kill. Bai Xiaochun. Gu Lai, being closest to Bai Xiaochun, his eyes widened, his mind went numb, his whole body trembled, he couldn't even breathe properly. His mind was filled only with Bai Xiaochun's words and the face of Zhang Feng's Wexi Yizhang in front of him. You are Yizhang, Gu Li's voice trembled. Since the blood trial, he had naturally developed a fear of Yizhang, a very strong fear, so now, his whole body was numb. The bloodlust and killing intent emanating from Bai Xiaochun made it clear to him, without needing to check, that the opponent was indeed, truly, the bloodthirsty night burial of Zhang Feng. He wasn't the only one terrified. Even the excited divine calculator was stunned. Seeing Bai Xiaochun put on the mask, transforming into the nightmare he had envisioned, the divine calculator screamed, Night burial? Impossible. All the bloodstream sect disciples who had been laughing and rushing forward were frozen in shock, their eyes wide, as if struck on the head with a club, utterly terrified. You. How is this possible? Oh my God, the bloodthirsty night burial of Wen Mo. Bai Xiaochun, they are the same person. Su Shenshen almost bit off his tongue. He had never encountered anything so unexpected in his life. Even Shai Feng was delirious, instinctively feeling like he was hallucinating again. Su Shenshen stared at Bai Xiaochun with his mouth agape. Song Qiu, consumed by murderous intent, froze, his thoughts seemingly unable to keep up. He stood there, his mouth agape, his whole body trembling, his face blank. He couldn't accept this sight. To him, Yizhang was an enemy, and Bai Xiaochun was even more so. And now, these two were one person. The entire battlefield instantly fell into absolute silence. The ancestors of the two sects, who were engaged in combat, forgot to intervene and turned to stare blankly at Bai Xiaochun. The Song family's ancestor was both astonished and bewildered. Wu Jizi was startled and confused, and the first-generation ancestor of the Lingxi sect Anti-Muzin couldn't believe it, thinking it was utterly absurd. The inherited disciples and blood souls were stunned, and the 3 great blood sons were dumbfounded. Yizhang, Bai Xiaochun. Xiao Zifeng blood son whispered, feeling as if the world had been turned upside down. This single sentence not only shook the bloodstream sect, but also struck the spirit stream sect behind Bai Xiaochun as if by lightning. Everyone was stunned, their voices choked with disbelief. It was truly unbelievable. Shangguan Tianu's cold smile, ready to watch Bai Xiaochun's death, froze on his face. He forgot to breathe, his eyes nearly popping out, his mind blank. Duya, Gong Xinyan, Bei Hanli, and especially Zhou Xinqi, their eyes widened to their fullest extent, feeling that this world was utterly absurd. Zhou Xinqi involuntarily recalled what Bai Xiaochun had once said to Hou Xiaomei. Wherever Bai Xiaochun was present, Yizhang wouldn't dare appear. This. Zhou Xinqi was utterly bewildered. Hou Xiaomei was astonished. It was impossible to reconcile the greatest Bai Xiaochun in her heart with the most terrifying Yizhang in the world. Not only her, but even Hou Yanfei, Zhang Depin, and He Sanpan were all equally confused. Li Qingou stared blankly at Bai Xiaochun as if he had never known him. Bai Xiaochun looked at the bloodstream sect members, flicked his sleeve, and spoke in a hoarse, icy voice, seeing me, the blood son, why don't you pay your respects? As soon as he finished speaking, the immortal longevity technique within him activated, and a unique aura, only possessed by a blood son, erupted, overwhelming all the Central Peak disciples. Gu Lai trembled, being the first to kneel, followed by Shen Xuanzi, and then the Central Peak disciples who had been acting wildly just moments before, all neatly kneeling down. Even Song Qiu, under Bai Xiaochun's blood sun pressure, couldn't help but kneel. Greetings, Central Peak blood sun. The greetings grew louder and louder, and all the Central Peak cultivators behind him trembled and knelt down. Looking around, Bai Xiaochun saw many people kneeling, making up 2/3 of the bloodstream sect's population. These people were all from the Central Peak. Only one person, whom Bai Xiaochun didn't suppress, didn't kneel. Instead, she stood more than 10 meters away from him, trembling all over, her eyes filled with disbelief, a complex mix of sorrow and grief that Bai Xiaochun dared not look into. She was the Central Peak Grand Elder, Song Junwan. Her reaction outwardly seemed the same as everyone else's, but it was mostly one of profound sorrow. After Yi Zhang's disappearance, she hadn't rested properly for many days, using all her strength to search for him, even begging the Song family's ancestor for help. Even after mounting her great sword to join the war, she still remembered Yi Zhang's disappearance, her heart filled with constant worrying. She could never have imagined that she would meet Yi Zhang again on the battlefield under such circumstances. Song Junwan looked at Yi Zhang in front of her. In the surrounding silence, her voice rang out, bitter and painful, making the listener feel heartbroken. Are you Yi Zhang or Bai Xiaochun? Who are you really? Song Junwan trembled, her eyes reddened, the last words almost uncontrollably rising in her voice. Bai Xiaochun remained silent. His feelings for Song Junwan were also complex. Seeing her teary red eyes, he averted his gaze and softly replied, Both must be. Song Junwan wept, tears falling to the ground. Both must be, so it was all a lie. She felt like a fool, recalling the scenes of her encounters with Yi Zhang. The more she remembered, the more pain she felt. Her whole body went limp, trembling helplessly, tears falling like rain. Bai Xiaochun gritted his teeth, looked up at the two sect ancestors in the sky, and said loudly, I am Bai Xiaochun, the one who allowed the inheritance of the Lingxi sect, and I am also Yi Zhang. The bloodstream sect's Central Peak blood son, ancestor, stop fighting. War is not the only way to solve problems. You two don't need something to believe in, do you? Do we really become one? Can we become that thing? Bai Xiaochun asked, his voice echoing across the battlefield, causing all the cultivators who heard it to fall silent. The Song family's ancestor hesitated. The fact that Yi Zhang was actually Bai Xiaochun was clearly hard to accept. But he thought, regardless of who Yi Zhang was, he was a Central Peak blood son cultivating Central Peak techniques. However, even though the bloodstream sect valued blood son Yi Zhang, this matter concerned the sect's survival, and he couldn't allow a blood son to cause trouble. The Song family's ancestor was about to speak, but Xiang Yanzhenren was quicker, sneering. The blood son's night burial sect was coerced by the Lingxi sect. The Lingxi sect is despicable and shameless, daring to coerce my blood son sect. Today, I, the old man, will destroy your sect, your lineage, and your entire family. Guards, come quickly to protect the blood son and bring him back to Blood Cloud. Xiang Yanzhenren's eyes flashed with cold light as he flicked his sleeve, declaring war onward. The reaction of the Venerable Yan was incredibly swift. In this situation, a single sentence from him echoed across the battlefield, instantly reversing the unfavorable situation created by Bai Xiaochun. It also gave the bloodstream sect another reason to furiously attack. The three great blood sons, Songqiu, and the bloodstream sect cultivators all blazed with anger. The three blood souls and several supreme elders no longer hesitated, rushing towards Bai Xiaochun. Nonsense, the first ancestor of the spirit stream sect snorted coldly. Bai Xiaochun is a heavenly vain disciple of our spirit stream sect. He's just young and has been poisoned by your demonic techniques. Today, right in front of me, you dare to come and abduct him, guards. Protect Bai Xiaochun and take him back to the mountain so I can deal with the bloodstream sect's demonic techniques within him. As soon as the patriarch spoke, the people of Lingxi sect, especially Li Qing'ao, rushed out to capture Bai Xiaochun. Both sides were filled with murderous intent, determined to seize Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun once again became the focal point of the battle. This focal point wasn't particularly important to either sect, but it was something they absolutely couldn't ignore. The bloodstream sect wanted to reclaim Yi Zhang to resolve their unfavorable situation, while the spirit stream sect wanted to reclaim Bai Xiaochun to further disadvantage the bloodstream sect. In the sky, the ancestors all took action. In midair, the inheritance lists, blood souls, and supreme elders from both sides unleashed their attacks, the light of spells and magical artifacts flying everywhere. The bloodstream sect's undying bone roared and flew out, its zombies soaring through the air like flying creatures. Wherever they went, the air was filled with corpse energy. The zombies created by Bai Xiaochun, according to his will, didn't participate, but they were alone, a mere drop in the ocean. An endless number of demons laughed loudly and surged forward. Blood swords appeared. Bai Xiaochun, as a blood sun, could suppress the Central Peak cultivators, but many of the previous blood suns of the Central Peak, because they were no longer blood suns, were not as strong as Bai Xiaochun. However, the combined strength of many, supported by the will of the ancestors, was enough to suppress Bai Xiaochun's blood sun status, allowing the Central Peak cultivators to continue fighting. The giant formation of the Lingxi sect roared and charged out. Shangguan Tianyu's giant burst forth with killing intent, along with the giants of Guya, Gongsanyan, Bei Hanli, Susong, and Zhou Xinqi, all rushing out. The heavenly horned black dragon also roared, spewing a waterfall of black flames, turning the sky into a sea of fire. In the sky, the white sun of the Lingxi sect and the scarecrow of the Bloodstream sect both emitted terrifying tremors. Bai Xiaochun felt bitter. He had revealed his identity as the Blood Sun, yet he couldn't stop the war. Watching familiar faces slaughter each other, his heart ached. Why must they kill each other? They could clearly avoid fighting. Is it because my strength isn't enough? That's why no one believed my words. Bai Xiaochun murmured, looking at the scene before him. He finally understood that without absolute power, no matter how important he was to the two sects, he couldn't influence this life or death battle. I said, you are not allowed to continue fighting. Bai Xiaochun trembled. He had no way back, and he didn't need a way back. He unleashed all his cultivation. His voice boomed like thunder, echoing in all directions. Some hesitated, but many scoffed, ignoring him. Shen Xuanzi and Gulai, seeing the blood spirits concentrate their power and dispel Bai Xiaochun's blood sun pressure, were filled with renewed fighting spirit. Only Song Junwan remained silent, her face still wet with tears. Did you hear me clearly? I said, you are not allowed to continue fighting. Bai Xiaochun roared, violently waving his hand, his voice soaring high and sharp with madness. His eyes blazed red, but the result was like throwing a small stone into a large lake. Although it created ripples, it wasn't enough to shake the entire surface. Tanger, don't be foolish anymore. Your identity is sensitive. Leave the battlefield quickly and don't participate. In this battle, you can't be on either side. The Song family's ancestor said softly. Xiaochun, the Bloodstream sect deliberately wants to fight. Your words are useless. I understand your intentions. Return to the Luochen mountain range and don't participate. The first ancestor of the Lingxi sect sighed. Bai Xiaochun trembled, looking at the slaughter around him. He knew what he was about to do would cause great harm to the Bloodstream sect, but he had no other choice. Bai Xiaochun tilted his head back and let out a mournful cry. The cry contained all his cultivation, all his inner strength, the immense power of the immortal longevity technique, and his extreme madness. His blood energy erupted completely, forming a column of blood-colored energy that rose high into the sky. Bai Xiaochun's voice became supremely majestic, echoing everywhere. Bloodstream sect, return. Bai Xiaochun raised his right hand towards the Bloodstream sect and pressed down. With a single seal, the heavens and earth roared. The blood-colored light column on his body expanded 100-fold. A blood-colored vortex appeared in the sky, transforming into a gigantic blood-red hand that replaced the sky. This hand made the exact same motion as Bai Xiaochun's hand, pressing down forcefully on the Bloodstream sect. An indescribable aura of majesty emanated from the blood-red hand. The Bloodstream sect's ancestors all stared intently at the blood-red hand, the Bloodstream sect's founder's expression changing. As the giant hand pressed down, in an instant, the cultivators of the Bloodstream sect's middle peak trembled, their faces turning pale with fear. As their cultivation techniques began to become chaotic, forming a kind of seal that suppressed themselves. In a flash, the combat power of all the middle peak cultivators was suppressed by half. Not only the middle peak, but also the Xiaozhe peak, Sha peak, Weiming peak, all the people of the Bloodstream sect were choked with terror. What's happening? My cultivation is in trouble. How could this happen? This is my cultivation has been sealed. Cries of shock echoed across the battlefield. Not only cultivators, but even the corpse refiners, demon lords, and blood swords were suppressed, screaming in fear. Even the blood clouds above and the sea of blood below dimmed, their power reduced by half. The Bloodstream sect's ancestors in the sky were also terrified, their cultivation suppressed. It was as if this was a suppression of their very essence, an unstoppable suppression. All cultivators who relied on the blood ancestor's body for their cultivation could not escape this curse.